But yeah, let's just get right into it. There's a lot of news to cover. Obviously, we got the Plattner fallout. We got Bernie out. Kirk trial. Trump in Turkey for NATO. As Satan Yahoo complains. U.S. empty loss after Trump touch. Plattner, Stevens debate later. Reacts are back. Twitch.tv/Hasanabi. Do we have a you add that you ruin? Did I say Plattner? Oh my God. I got Plattner on the mind. Shit. Jesus Christ. Good call, chatters. Not Plattner. Yeah, Graham Plattner. Graham Plattner is now. Graham Plattner is now running in Michigan. He's going to ruin another fucking Senate race. I stopped watching Stopp's most recent podcast episodes of this. Anyway, no socials banner. You've changed. Boom. It's back. You're early today? Yeah. So we're going to do FD Victory Lap. Not even the FD Victory Lap. We're going to watch the FD video about Graham Plattner. We're gonna watch that, and I'm gonna do a special call out to all the people that I talk to both publicly and also talk to in private about my disagreements on, or like my assessment on the main race. But yeah, big shout out to FD Signifier. Big shout out to Sean the Black, especially, who was, day one. Was a day one. I'm not with this shit. Big shout out to a lot of the Hasanabi heads who were skeptical on the Plattner tip. No shout outs to the fucking third worldists who were up my asshole being like every troop should be murdered. Obviously we can have reasonable disagreements, and it's important to understand what we identified as like, support versus what degree of support. Turns out Plattner was a little too on brand for appealing to the hogs. Yeah. But Chris Rabb, even AOC, even the Chapo guys weren't high on him. It doesn't matter. They've been literally saying that me and the Chapo guys were like the number one defenders of Graham Plattner, that we endorsed them, and we were unbelievably supportive of Graham Plattner. Shout out to Oni Spumoni. We'll get into that. Textures on that suit are on point. Definitely a good use of normal map. Normal map. Textures on the suit. I don't even know what you mean. Yeah. Also, why don't you ever have a take as brave as this? Toby Durden, rights come from God, not from the government. Fire every politician that doesn't understand that. Yeah. Toby Durden for Ayatollah of South Dakota. Toby Durden is going to be elected into office by 88 clerics. Not the Muslim ass style, but clerics nonetheless. All right, where is the Hassan Piker is a white supremacist. AOC is a white supremacist. AOC and Zoran hired actress Jennifer Rasico, who does not have any public profiles. AOC is Spain, not Puerto Rico. AOC is a white supremacist. AOC is a white supremacist. White boy Hassan. Hassan Piker is a white supremacist. Wallahi. Bro, I was going to say take your meds, but honestly, I don't even think medicine will help you. I don't know what planet you're on. Anyway, does anyone have a fucking... Bro, does anyone have a blast off meme? Totally normal chatter. What a parting gift for the USA getting eliminated. Okay, we'll talk about the USA getting eliminated. We don't have a blast off meme, it seems. Okay, I'll just use the Austin Ox Zoran meme. Fuck it, why not? I want written apologies from all the freaks that called FD and Sean liberal wreckers. You fucking racist hacks. Look, one of the things that I maintained. Oh shit! This would have been a perfect blast off meme, but I missed my chance. This is awesome. Look, obviously, the first story of today is going to be on Graham Plattner. It's the major news story of the moment. We're going to be talking about that. Obviously, there have been a sequence of red flags that some valid, some not so valid, regular politics, regular political actors actively coming after what was a Bernie-crat, anti-Israel candidate who certainly wasn't thoroughly or properly vetted at all. But this last allegation, hot girls for Toby Doby for South Dakota. I need y'all to be serious for a moment, man. Can we be serious for a moment? Can we just do that? Can we be Toby Derby for South Dakota? Vargentina, VA Argentina. Okay, listen. Yes, the first story that we are going to be talking about today is Graham Plattner. Graham Plattner, 4-term. What happened to supporting Graham Plattner? I don't know. Were you not paying attention to what took place yesterday, where there was a credible rape allegation that came out from not that long ago as well, like from 2021? Gonna talk about that right now, as a matter of fact. So, credible rape allegation comes from credible rape allegation comes out on Politico. It's one of the victim was actually someone who had given a statement to the New York Times, but had not said that it was did not want it to be reported that it was rape, and she changed her mind, and yeah, it's done. It's over. Put a fork in it, right? The campaign is done. Now, obviously, I'm going to be talking about like what this means for the Senate majority and what this means for Maine in general. Legitimately, what were Plattner's qualifications other than endorsed by Bernie and says the right things? Fetterman was the same and Plattner could have done the same thing. Qualification sounds like a liberal candidate requirement, but we had no demonstrable history of leftism or advocacy, even normal non-Blackwater work that would ensure he wouldn't just stab you in the back while he got into office. I think that it mostly just stemmed from his, private profile, like his statements in private. But I did talk about his like lack of. There were some people in my community that made it seem as though Graham Plattner was, potentially going to run for president or whatever the fuck, and or was the face of this movement, which to which I pushed back on. But none of that matters. Okay. Majority Report enjoyer. Yeah. Graham Plattner talked about how Michael Brooks had one-shotted him and changed his worldview, all this stuff. I'm not here to say we told you so or anything like that, and you're not performative or a coward, but is there anything to say about the fact that the character issues were clearly there from the beginning? He invaded Afghanistan 4 times and did Blackwater. Those people are rapists usually already. Here's what I will say. What I will say about Graham Plattner is what I've said from the start about Graham Plattner. The red flags were there, but these red flags were totally immaterial for the voters in Maine. And that my assessment on this was the silver lining, which is something that I tweeted, I think like right after the Graham Plattner announcement or right after, like this was months in the past. And I've talked about this extensively. The silver lining always was, it seems like people are invested in a candidate that will say those things. Because the reality of the matter is, it's Graham Plattner's background and his personal moral failings that did him in. But his campaign outside of that was a phenomenal campaign. That's precisely the reason why he put up insane numbers against the fucking existing centrist, hand-selected candidate that is the governor of the state. That's important. That's important analysis. And I'm never going to shy away from giving you that analysis. My job is twofold. And I feel like there's been a lot of crosstalk on my perspective versus my analysis on the race and what this says about the appetite for change. Okay? Trump's 2016 campaign was good, though. See, this is the problem. Why do people do this? Like, why? This is my issue. And then like 98% of the clip compilations out there are always people making like a totally ridiculous comparison. And then me going back to Graham Plattner's like policy perspectives and what that means for the overall race, what that means for races all around the country. Many of the candidates you have actually excitedly endorsed and supported and fucking door knocked for, like Maylak Giros, Chris Rabb, Thady-Elisa Avila Chevalier, Claire Valdez, candidates that I actually fucking went out, not only endorsed, but went out, fundraised for, actively campaigned alongside of, and am proud to have played a role with this community in getting elected into fucking office. Okay? Like, here's the difference. When you say something like this, of course I'm going to fucking retaliate and be like, that's a stupid argument. And then people will clip it and be like, Hassan is defending Graham Plattner again. I'm not. It's very frustrating. The issues were there. It can't be all about the campaign. It can't be all about the Mainers like them. You know, I'm not shitting on the rest of your work. You do know that. Yes. Okay. In any case, can you look at Tom Tiffany's smears on you after having Francesca on? I'm worried. Rural racist Wisconsin is real. I don't know who that is, but we'll look at it in a second. So I think it was one of my first, one of the first tweets that I had on the Graham Plattner issue was more so about like the broad broad appetite that people had all around the country, including in a state like Maine that's a very old state, very white state. And I asked the question that I repeatedly asked over and over again. Does this mean that people have an appetite for the policies, or do they simply like that Graham Plattner is a white guy and looks the part? And this was a question that I had for the Mainers. And that question remains to be seen, because the comparison I always made was between Plattner with obvious red flags versus Abdullah Syed. So it's seeing a lot of libs defend Plattner over establishment pick Janet Mills because he has a leftist platform, and it seems like they're tired of the status quo electability arguments of the Dems. Now imagine if you had a candidate who didn't have a Blackwater CV and a totem cough. Okay? But many people will take the advantage, take the time out of their busy days, they're not usually doing anything else, to make it seem as though I did not have a much more scrutinized opinion on Graham Plattner as opposed to many of these other candidates. And I will tell you exactly why, okay? It's totem, not totem. Okay, whatever. I know. There's a difference that I have, a difference in opinion that I have with many of the people that don't work on these sorts of campaigns in any way, shape, or form with other candidates who will go out and maybe door knock, go out and maybe phone bank, but they're not looking at the situation with a broader vision of winning the Senate majority. There are plenty of people in this coalition in the Democratic Party that are dog shit, okay? Policy-wise, background-wise, just horrible overall. Many people that I'm not going to actively go out and endorse, but many Democratic senators, for example, that have to be a part of this coalition regardless, just to have the numbers and the seats, okay? Because at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, a Democratic representative or a Democratic senator is going to be better than a Republican one, okay? It's that simple. And Graham Plattner was no different. But to simply say that this was just a lesser evil harm reduction attitude would be also incorrect. For Graham Plattner's race, what I was interested in always was the fact that he was an unashamed left populist. Now, the problem that comes along with that is that his stink and his background and the things that he did will now be slammed into every other Bernie endorsed candidacy, which is devastating. Okay? 100%. Actually, now just a shamed left populist? Yeah, well, that's true. So, am I wrong to have made the assessment that Graham Plattner, given his policies, regardless of his red flags, was still a better choice than Susan Collins and Janet Mills? No. Okay? With the current information that we have on Graham Plattner, obviously that's an entirely different predicament. If Graham Plattner had credible accusations of conducting war crimes in the same way that he has a credible accusation of rape, then that would have been irredeemable as well. Okay? But for a lot of people, their assessment directly stemmed from the fact that he went and did 4 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq and then joined Blackwater. For me, the Blackwater thing was the biggest red flag. Okay? The Blackwater thing and the Totenkopf tattoo was major red flags, should have been seen in the vetting process, and it should have absolutely been a red flag that was, that would have stopped him from running. But I think, and I can only make this assessment because I have no connection to these people that hand selected this candidate, they saw a guy who was capable of delivering a charismatic speech, which, for the record, regardless of his immoral nature, that part still remains to be true, especially in a state like Maine, that he was a candidate that was capable of exciting a lot of older white voters. Okay? Now, there's varying degrees of support that were thrown in the direction of Graham Plattner. I myself, of course, were at times talking about how ridiculous some of the campaigns were coming from people who were openly pro-Israel and were taking that position because they were pro-Israel. It wasn't because of it wasn't because they had seen red flags or anything. It was very clear that they were like, he's anti-Israel, or Graham Plattner is what do you call it? Graham Plattner is anti-Israel. I'm pro-Israel. That's it. I hate it. Right? Why are your chats being modded? Because you're fucking linking a psychopathic cyber stalker of mine's manifesto in the chat. And as a 7-month subscriber, you should know better than to do that. That's why. That's why you're getting modded. If Plattner were a Republican, his rape allegation would have helped his campaign. If Plattner was a Republican, he probably would not drop out. No one would demand he drop out. What makes him a psychopath and a cyber stalker? I don't know. His last 6 years of social media footprint, day in, day out, endless coverage of every little thing that I do from a negative framework. That's a pretty good assessment of the situation, I think. His cyber stalking and also his psychopathic behavior. What does this mean for the Dem majority? We don't know yet. I don't know who they're going to put forth. But what I will say is this. My position on this issue from October 21st, 2025 is the exact same right now. Okay? My position on this is the exact same. The fact that there is a lot of momentum, the fact that there was a lot of momentum behind this guy, a unknown entity who was able to defeat in the primaries the governor of the state, okay, the establishment hand-selected candidate that the field was cleared for, regardless of those red flags, like the Totenkopf tattoo, the Blackwater CV, and some less favorable things that he had said on Reddit many years ago, right? Regardless of all of that, he actually fucking destroyed. He destroyed Janet Mills. Bill's Mafia till the bitter end. There's an important lesson there. Okay? That's what I'm interested in. That's what I've been interested in. And that's what I will continue being interested in. Now, the lesson could be one of two things. One, it could literally be because he's a white guy who said that, he had redeemed himself. He had gotten better. He had issues with PTSD. Like, he was capable of telling a really good story. Okay? Why you stick with Morris Katz for Plattner and Brand Lander? Who is Cyberstalker? Why do I stick with Morris Katz? Why do you get your information from insane people? I have no connection to the fight agency, and I have maintained the position that fight agency makes banger ads. That's it. They're an ad agency. They're not a political organization. I don't know why people are trying to tie me to the fight agency. It's an ad agency, and they make really good ads. Like, I stand by that. They make really, really great ads. Okay? But they're an ad agency. They're not a political organization. They're not a political movement. They're an ad agency. And not only are they an ad agency, they're an ad agency. They've worked with like the likes of Michael Lasher. Okay? Perhaps that's the best that's the best proof that they are not like a part of a political movement, but more so just an ad agency, right? There is a level of mercenary work that you do in that situation. And I'm sure there's plenty of great people. And I think there are some great people there, some wonderful people that work there, but ultimately it is an ad agency, right? And before people say like, oh, the main DSA endorsed Graham Plattner, they did not. They suggested him. Okay? DSA never endorsed Graham Plattner. They simply suggested him on the ballot as an acceptable substitute to Janet Mills and to Susan Collins, which is my position as well. Okay? Recommendations are not endorsements, and even endorsements do not mean that someone is a DSA candidate in general. You could be a DSA endorsed candidate like Troy Jackson was for governor. That doesn't mean Troy Jackson is, I don't think Troy Jackson was a part of the DSA, right? But I think the important lesson here is, once again, to demand more proper vetting and not to go out to bat, even to the degree that I did on campaigns like Graham Plattner's. Even though I hedged my commentary over and over again and had many private and some public disagreements with the likes of even FD Signifier, Cavernickel as well, and defended certain people like Chris Rabb when they criticized Graham Plattner, defended FD's criticisms of Graham Plattner. I still thought that he would be a better substitute for Susan Collins or for Janet Mills. That's it. Hedging doesn't work in Clipchimp land. Of course, it doesn't matter. But if you're thinking like, you showed the same level of support, you lend your entire audience and your whole ass level of support to Graham Plattner, it's not true. As people have seen already, and as I talked about as well, there was a point where I wanted to interview Graham Plattner because I had certain questions of Graham Plattner. And here's one of those clips. I'm glad that someone at least found it. Okay. This is the reasons why people like him. When are you having him on? He's not. I don't think he's going to come on. He wanted to come on. Initially, his team wanted to bring him on, but y'all yelled and cried so much and pissed in your pants and farted that I couldn't even have a conversation with him about his background and get to know him better and get to understand where he was coming from. I don't think he's ever coming on because we're like 100%. See, but this is it. We made fun of a Nazi. Brother, you have to be a little bit more tactical about this stuff, okay? You have to, I would have liked to have a a one-on-one conversation about that and numerous other things. I wasn't gonna like glaze him, and that's now the reason why he's not coming on. It's all good, you know. I mean, I don't really give a shit. Like I said, it's out of my hands. We're pills. We're pills mafia, baby. We're pills mafia. Graham Plattner is literally the liberal Donald Trump people have been looking for. Yeah, that's still true, by the way. He is. Yeah, no, he is the candidate for the moment. He is the leader of the American woke chud movement. Anyone who actually watches the coverage can see the difference. No, there's plenty of people who are in this community as well who came in here and would regularly yell at me, but they would make it seem as though like my level of commentary or support for Graham Plattner was the same as like Abdul Al Sayed. You know what I mean? Like that's, or my level of support for Daria Liza or Chris Rabb, people like that. That's just not true. And there's varying degrees of social democrats, leftists on the internet that did offer a lot more support. Not that it matters. Like I certainly made my position known, which is that Graham Plattner was a preferable candidate to Susan Collins and Janet Mills. None of these guys ever actually countered that for some reason. And it's still fucking true. You know what I mean? Well, it's not true any longer, but it was like, it was that conversation that consistently led to people clipping shit to be like, you defended him a lot. You defended him a lot. No, I didn't. I defended the idea that he is, at least at the time, for the information that we had, a better candidate pushing for better policies than Susan Collins and Pills Mafia. So that's where we're at, or that's where I was at. Okay. As a longtime fan, I think you need to reflect on how you take criticism, especially from the left. Not everyone is a wrecker or a Maoist third worldist. Sometimes they just disagree with you. I know. But we're playing a little bit of rewriting of history here as well. Because the people that were coming in here with criticisms weren't like Sean the Black's criticisms. They weren't like FD Signifier's criticisms. Their criticisms were Graham Plattner raped and ate children in Afghanistan, specifically did torture in Abu Ghraib, and you love doing torture to the Iraqi children. You have the death of 1 million Iraqi babies on your hands. You love when Iraqi children die. You love when Iraqi children die. That's why you're supporting Graham Plattner. That's why you want Graham Plattner to be your father. What the fuck? Sean never says shit like that? Yeah, exactly. Which is why I'm saying we can have reasonable fucking criticisms and disagreements amongst one another. Okay? But of course, if someone comes in and says that, I'm going to be like, you're an insane person. That's the whole point. And for some weird reason, people do this like weird Mott and Bailey where they go, well, there was some reasonable disagreements in chat with you, and not like me yelling at the people who were like, every person who's been a troop at any point in their lives deserves the death penalty. Okay? You're creating a non-existent person. Oh, come on. Come on, brother. That's not a straw man. It's like, under normal circumstances, I like embellishing and I like exaggerating because I'm supposed to be someone who's an entertaining figure. This is the one instance where there is a very specific tendency in this community, a very specific slant. Because, like, look, Dylan Saba, who is my friend, who was very critical of Graham Plattner and kept repeatedly saying over and over again, this guy's a fucking Blackwater mercenary from 2018. Of course he's got fucking major red flags. I don't know what the fuck people are saying. I agree with him. I respect his position. I agree with him. I agree with the red flags myself. But for me, as far as like a potential for a broader coalition, as far as pushing for a left populist that I did not think had this many irredeemable qualities, let's be real, you know, it was fine to hedge for me to say, hey, look, it's out of my hands, as I did back then. It's out of my hands. If the people of Maine like them, the people of Maine like them. Okay? That's it. Yeah. And it's so strange that there are a lot of people who are running victory laps as though like Graham Plattner is currently dropping out because like he is a Bad Empanada said Morris Katz was my handler, my Jewish handler, Morris Katz. Is that the argument that we're making now? Bad Empanada? Come on, man. It's ironic because they also, on the one hand, say that I'm like working with Fight Agency, which is not true. It's fucking ridiculous to say that. And not only that, but also, like Morris Katz is 23 years old, okay? When I started doing political commentary 13 years ago, Morris Katz was like 10. Okay? What are we talking about? He's not 23, he's 24. Okay. And not only that, but I think he's a great ad guy, for the record. I think he's a great ad guy. I think most people who are good faith are coming from the argument that obviously a war piggy who made like 5 tours and didn't have enough, so much that he enlisted as a mercenary and got a Nazi tattoo was bound to come out as a rapist or something. This is obvious for a lot of people, and apparently it is not to you. That's not saying all veterans need to go through the gallows. No, I agree. But the problem is, I also shared that same level of skepticism, but it wasn't enough for me to just like come out and be like, fuck Graham Plattner, fuck Bernie Sanders, fuck the entire broad left populist movement. They're all a bunch of Zionists. Okay? And no, it wasn't obvious that he would be a rapist either. Okay? That's the difference. And now that we have evidence that he is, it's over. But do you understand, like, do you understand where I'm coming from? Because it's not like I didn't hedge. It's not like I didn't fucking, it's not like I came out of the gate swinging and was like, he's the greatest thing that has ever happened. He's the face of this movement. He's the best guy of all time. Okay? It's just like there are varying degrees of support that I offer certain candidates. Graham Plattner didn't get any of that, with the exception of whenever people would come and tell me that Janet Mills or Susan Collins would be an acceptable substitute, I said, no, I don't think that's the case, with the evidence that I had, with the information that I had at the time. And when new information comes in, we change our perspective. Yeah. And when the Nazi tattoo came out, I spent a good deal of time talking about how that paired up with the Blackwater mercenary thing was a bridge too far. Okay? But that's it. If you were expecting me to stand in opposition with one member of this, one candidate that they put forward that I had no say in whatsoever, while, taking somewhat of a somewhat of an arm's length, while still clearing the air on, some of the more ridiculous attacks, not the Blackwater stuff, but the more ridiculous shit, calling him a commie, this is bad, all this stuff. I was always going to do that. I'm always going to tell you what my actual honest to God opinion is. It's that simple. I think the support for Plattner and Valdez were vastly different, and I don't know how obvious criticisms of Plattner weren't plain to see. Yeah. I have a 20-minute screen record where you were telling chatters to have charitability for being a soldier and how many people in this community have changed. Yes, that's a stance that I will always maintain. I believe that. And a lot of people don't agree with that. And they're using Graham Plattner as proof that, it's just veterans are not to be trusted. Okay? I'm not a troop fucker in the way that Democrats are, where they're like, oh my God, Amy McGrath is going to be a wonderful candidate or anything like that, right? I'm not one of those guys. I'm just agnostic. No one will mention Adam Hamawi, though. No, these are the same people that also were shitting on Adam Hamawi. In any case, there's still, this is still up in the air. The real point of the conflict is that military vets can/cannot debate. That's really it. People don't really give a fuck about Platinum or the victim. Exactly. And it's interesting because like, it's interesting because like a lot of the conversation, a lot of the anger and resentment is not even coming from, in this community, it's coming from, you know, people who are like, we told you so. Why didn't you listen to us? You should have just like outright shit on him from the start instead of, you know, having your criticisms, but still saying like, look, he's a better candidate than Susan Collins. He's a better candidate than Susan Collins and Janet Mills, right? You shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have said that at all, which is not the case. I mean, with the information that we had, he had a lot of red flags, but even outside of that, without like any sort of credible accusation, he still was better than Susan Collins at the time. And also, Susan Collins and also Janet Mills. So I wish you and other progressives had treated the Platinum race like New York 12. Oh, that's a fair shake. I mean, if you're talking about the rest of the online progressive left, I can't speak for their varying degrees of support. I'm just simply telling you where I'm coming from. Okay? But I am understanding of where they're coming from as well. I know what their assessment is. New York 12 was the Michael Asher race, for those of you who don't know, which we just did not talk about at all. I think the level of support I gave Plattner was even less than Brad Lander, honestly. And I'm fine with Brad Lander being a part of this broader movement, despite my disagreements with Brad, right? On certain issues. It's tougher, though, because it was a Senate race. Yeah, it's a huge deal. At the end of the day, I don't know where this will go. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know where this, I don't know who the replacement is going to be. I'm going to obviously continue working on the candidates that I have been working with. But if you are trying to understand like what my assessment is, or if you saw what my skepticism was, but also saw a bunch of clips of me being like, you know, I'm riding with riding with Grant Plattner or whatever. Well, you know, I'm here to clarify my position. And I know that no matter what I say, there's going to be a fucking barrage of misinformation out there. Especially because no matter what, when I try to offer you any sort of nuanced critique or any sort of nuanced analysis, people want black and white. People don't want to hear. People don't want to hear what the nuanced perspective is on this. Morris Katz apparently has not reached out to the New York Post. His team is delusional, this person said, noting that Katz, a former campaign advisor to New York City Mayor Zohar Mamdani, is still recommending Plattner remain in the race. Morris Katz says, to be very clear, no one in campaign deliberations are familiar with my thinking is talking to the New York Post. Sam Piker tells me Plattner should drop out as sees Troy Jackson as a clear replacement that satisfies the needs for credentials and embodies some of the populist policies. I mean, Troy Jackson is not a great replacement for Grant Plattner. Like, I will be honest with you. I just don't know what the alternatives are. I don't know what the alternatives are. We'll see what they put up. We'll see who pushes for what. And we'll see where it goes. Choose me, I'll move, buddy. Yeah. As someone from the Global South, I appreciate everything you've done. P.S. You are not going to get charitability from the people who are just looking to score internet points. I know. Yeah, I mean, all the fucking accusations that I'm like, a mercenary for the DNC or a mercenary for a fight agency, these are fucking ridiculous accusations coming from the schizo left conspiracy theorists. And there's not much else I can say. You can see the deliberate actions that I've taken. And it's really funny because those very same people will then turn around and will literally be like, oh, Hassan wanted to work desperately with Graham Plattner. It's his campaign that didn't want to work with him. And then they don't work through the motions of that. Like, they don't work through why that didn't actually happen. They don't ask the question why the Plattner campaign had no issues working with, like, David Sirota, Majority Report, numerous other outlets. But for some reason, they just chose to avoid being interviewed by someone like myself. They don't actually, because if they were to investigate a little bit further, they would understand exactly what I said. They would arrive at the same conclusion that I suspect the skepticism coming from their camp was because I was going to ask him about his background in Blackwater, his tattoo, the decision-making process there. And they didn't want that. They didn't want to have that conversation at all. And in that conversation that I had with Chat, where I'm like, you guys have to be a little bit more tactful. I'm saying, like, we have to be a little bit more tactful as far as, like, how much we yell about certain things, because then it undermines the opportunity to do proper vetting for a campaign, proper vetting for a candidate in the process of an interview. Okay? That's what that statement is about. That's why I say we have to be a little bit more tactful. Your haters don't even defend Daria, Claire, Corey, Rab, Hamaweed. They're unserious people. Yeah, it's all a gotcha attempt. So yeah. Bro, you just showed a clip on which you were complaining they canceled because of chatters, not because of your opinions and doubts. See, this is what I mean. Brother, do you not understand the words that were coming out of my mouth, even in that fucking clip? What are you talking about? Yes, I said, you guys chirp too much. You wouldn't let me fucking cook. Hello? How do you think... Are you stupid? How do you think a campaign views a potential interview as, like, maybe contentious? They obviously look at the way that, my community reacts to the fucking candidate. And no, I didn't even want to fucking cook him. I just wanted to investigate further, like, ask some serious questions about, like, where he stands. Okay? What the fuck is this? Gasparino? Is Hassan Piker the one who calls the shots in the Democratic Party?
That Hassan Piker has a voice. I mean, have you ever listened to that guy? Some of his theories about everything from Marxism, economic Marxism, to cultural Marxism, to Israel.
He's way.
So this guy is their standard bearer, and I just found it fascinating. People said, "Oh, it's all over for Platinum because Hassan Piker came out against him." I'm like, Hassan, he's the guy that calls the shots in the Democratic Party.
I'm not.
So the people Jackie's talking about in the primary.
It's so funny that these guys have, like, invented this alternative reality. I'm not this person. Why does nobody give a shit about my perspective on this? Ironically enough, I'm not this fucking person, man. You guys keep saying it, and then you're like, I'm scared about the alternative reality that I have envisioned in my mind.
I think to a large degree,
but a lot of people, yeah, but that's what I mean. They are controlling. The left is controlling. The left has replaced the establishment as the driving force.
Did you just say that Troy Jackson isn't a good option because you said yesterday that he's him? I'm saying that he embodies a lot of the populist qualities in his legislative track record. But ultimately, I mean, he's not a very charismatic guy. I don't know what's going to happen in Maine. I have no idea. I have no understanding. I'm just telling you, this is all happening in real time. It's not that he's too old. It's just that he reads as too old. But when you look at someone like Troy Jackson, who has a legislative track record that's very good, like fairly reliable in a state like Maine, but then you look at the way he carries himself, and then you look at the way that Graham Plattner was doing all these fucking rallies, and you develop a better understanding of why so many people in Maine fucking voted for this dude, okay, regardless of the red flags. And that is important to identify because what comes next will need... what comes next will need to muster up those very same forces that that propelled Graham Plattner into the top slot in Maine. Okay? Do you understand why I'm saying this? Because the reality of the matter is, while a lot of these establishment Democrats have been flexing, have been talking about how, it was actually the stupid consultant class wearing Carhartt for vibes that convinced everyone to vote for Graham Plattner. What they fail to recognize is Mainers voted for him. Okay? White, older Mainers voted for the dude. Do you understand? I said, I'm losing my mind. The consulting class and establishment Dems cleared the field for the governor, and the people of Maine voted for the dude with a Totenkopf hat who was anti-Israel and pro-Medicare for all instead. I agree he should drop out, but this argument is so unbelievably stupid. And you have to identify why that happened. Okay? Analysis does not equal endorsement. You have to identify why that happened. If you simply say, my least favorite characters in the establishment, or my least favorite characters that are anti-establishment content creators are the reason why this guy fucking won, you're a moron. Okay? Why is no one taking this shit seriously? I know why a lot of people on the internet want to score cheap political points by using a real instance of rape to do a gotcha moment. But what I cannot comprehend is why serious people who are supposed to be serious analysts are not looking at the situation and recognizing the changes that have taken place within the base of support for the Democratic Party. Okay? I genuinely asked this, and I don't mean to be an ass, I promise, but why is it fine that he committed atrocities abroad because he later said it was bad, but when he's raped someone, that's the red line? Because okay, do you want my perspective, or do you want the actual, adult analysis, the sober analysis of how people view someone who's a veteran? Because no one fucking cares in the United States of America when someone is a veteran. That's not seen as a negative thing, okay? That is just a negative association in this community and this community alone. That's it, okay? Like, no one associates someone who went on 4 tours, even as a machine gunner for the Marines, as someone that has done atrocities, okay? That's it. That's it. They see veterans as heroes. They don't see veterans as war criminals. They see veterans as heroes. So if you're asking me what my assessment is on every veteran, I treat every single person, including every single veteran, as an individual. I don't treat them as a monolith. I don't treat them as all baby-killing warmongers. I look at it on a case-by-case basis. That's it. That's it. And with Graham Plattner, the biggest red flag, wasn't the fact that he did 4 tours, even though that is, not great, obviously. But the biggest red flag was that he, as recently as 2018, joined Constellas, the private security firm, to do embassy security, which is like the lowest level. Ironically enough, probably less war crimes took place as he was doing embassy security, as opposed to like potentially being a machine gunner and a grunt, right? Having said that, the decision-making process there is what matters to me. He saw Blackwater and he saw the war crimes that Blackwater had engaged in, and he was like, this is it. This is I'm going to go and join this. I'm going to join this group. That was a huge red flag. The other red flag, obviously, was, again, the decision-making process that caused him to go and get a fucking Totenkopf tattoo and keep that shit on his body for a very long time. Okay? In some respects, I feel like we are doing the same thing that, like, Neera Tanden does, right? When we say, why the fuck do the Mainers not care that he was a mercenary, is almost the same, like, demand for disciplining the base instead of understanding where the base is and trying to find a more acceptable substitute. It's the same disciplining operation that Zionists do when they're like, why do people hate Israel? Just because we're morally on the correct side of this argument does not change that reality that, like, you have to, what do I always say? You have to go to where the masses are. You have to speak the language of the masses, and you have to appeal to the needs of the masses if you want to build a mass movement. Okay? You can't sit around and be like, why do people not see every veteran as a fucking child murderer? They should see every veteran as a child murderer, which, by the way, I don't do that regardless. Okay? That's it. A lot of this conversation still goes back to please be normal. It's ironic that people are mad about a guy who got banned for being a person who got banned on this platform for discriminating against the protected class. Unfortunately, on this platform, veterans are a protected class. And I did discriminate against a U.S. representative at the time in 2019 who happens to be a veteran. People think I got banned for saying America deserved bleep. I actually got banned for discriminating against the protected class, which veterans are. Okay? In any case, yes, on Twitch, the terms of service is so that veterans are seen as a protected class. For those of you who don't know, now you know. This combo pisses me off so much. Like, Maine voters chose Graham for the left position, and all you did was say the truth that eating bread, Graham, is better than eating shit, Mills or Collins. And it turns out that the bread was moldy, and now the moldy bread is just as bad as eating shit, and you're throwing it away. Yes. So, that was good. Can you define what exactly is normal? You were describing it like an abstract concept, which is difficult to grasp. Can we get like a checklist or something? Chatter. That's funny. That is the most autistic question I've ever received in my entire life. Respect. No, I can't give you what a checklist of normal is, okay? Sometimes we just got to mask it, okay? I do it all the time, and I think you can too. I believe in you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have like a checklist of what normal is. I think it's something that you just learn by being out and about and being around people. Obviously, and just like getting a better grasp of how the average person operates, how the average person thinks, where the average person is, right? Like, Nick Pollum is not a normal person. He's a Twitch streamer, right? We are far from the, we are very far away from the normal individual. Now, having said that, Nick Pollum's conversation I had with him yesterday and his opinions on politics are probably closer to the uninitiated, politically uneducated normie, a guy who's just kind of like, I don't really understand what's going on, but I feel like there's some corruption and some foul play taking place in American politics. Like, that's closer to the average person's understanding of politics than every single individual in this chat. And sometimes it's important for us to recognize that when we have conversations in the real world. Okay? Yeah, Evan had a good take on this, but he said people talk about media literacy, but I think we need to start talking about moral literacy. Hasan has made a few edgy jokes here and there, but Asmongold's daily, unironically talking about why killing people is great. There's no comparison here.
Well,
be honest. Do you think Asmon knows?
Well,
be honest. Do you think Asmon knows a single thing that I just explained to you?
Maybe, but the thing about Asmon, he does have a memory that, like, if he sees something, he'll remember it. Like, he has like a photographic memory. So I don't know.
There is fucking 0% chance that he knows a single damn thing that I just mentioned to you.
I mean, he's talking about it all day. So what's he talking about then? He must
He's
know.
just fucking rehashing whatever he's seen on Twitter and then grokking it.
I don't know. I think he might know. One of these days, you and him have to have a conversation.
I would love that. I
don't want to be there, but I think
balls in his court. Balls in his court.
You know, I really do.
Also, people can talk. They can just talk out of their ass. He knows.
I mean, he's good. You and him both. And that's why I put you guys in S tier. You guys have the ability to talk about things and keep people interested more than most people. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't deny that. You keep people interested.
I guess I'm not denying that I can do that. Here's my struggle when you say we can't just tell normies that veterans are baby murderers, is that babies did get murdered by American soldiers, a lot of them. I know, dude. I know. But ask yourself, is this the appropriate vector for advocacy? And if the answer is yes, please reconsider. Okay? This is why I say you have to come at this from a point of understanding of where the masses are, what is normalized in American society, in American culture, and work your way through that process. Because there's never been a moment where I'm like, join the military. It's great. They are, the most important defensive force that's ever existed. I don't do any of that shit. I tell people all the time that the recruitment practices are unbelievably predatory. The American military is not a force for good around the world, and that we should dramatically reconsider the way we approach these sorts of conversations. We approach these sorts of concepts. Okay, the output of the U.S. military is not to be the world police. That's a overall good thing, but to advance the interests of the capitalist class. That's clear. Okay. But that doesn't mean you can run around and be like, they're murdering children with regular frequency all the time. Like it's insane. Not untrue, but think of how many vets have done absolutely no reflection on their service and continue to use their discount at Denny's like they did a good job. I know. But that's not who you're trying to talk to. You're trying to talk to other people. You're trying to talk to other people that are not the relentless hog veteran who thinks he actually did the awesome thing of like murdering Muslim children or whatever. Okay? That's not who you are talking to when you're having these conversations. And you have to always remember, other people hear you. Okay? Other people hear you and go, ugh, what the fuck did he say? That's crazy. They don't go, wow, this guy is clearly on the right side of this argument, and now I'm going to seriously reconsider my worldview. A lot of people, unfortunately, never do that. They don't want to push for a vision in the affirmative by, just going through the motions a little bit, moderating your messaging a little bit. It's fucking crazy. And I wish people would do that. And many of you love the guys who do that, right? Who do that even better than I ever could. Zoran Mamdani is a great example. You guys all love him. He does this perfectly well. He liberalizes his worldview to make it appealing and to be at the forefront of this movement. And you guys love it when he does it. You love it when I do it as well, or when I see success in this thing that we've been trying to fucking build for years. But you never want to think about the work that and the messaging that it took to get to this point. You see what I mean? That's it. I want to watch the FD Signifier red flag video and see what lessons we can learn from it, as he was, alongside Sean the Black, a very loud critic of Graham Plattner, which many people, I think, misunderstood his point as well. I talked to FD privately many times over leading up to this video as well. Okay. We got Benjamin Netanyahu speaking to CNN, by the way, on the docket too. We're going to get to all of that and more. But look, there were a lot of people who said these red flags are irredeemable. Okay. I was not one of those people until recently. Okay. You're not going to like the lessons because it's about white supremacy. No, first of all, see, this is what I mean. A lot of people misunderstand my position on this. I have made that argument all the way back in fucking November 2025. What did I tell you? You have seen me talk about this, especially in comparison to a candidate that I actually was very excited about and had endorsed and have been working with versus Graham Plattner. The Abdul El-Sayed versus Graham Plattner argument comes to mind instantly. This is something that I said on the Podjohns' podcast all the way back in November 2025. Let's run the tape one more time. We shall see if the liberals are more forgiving of guys like Graham Plattner because he's a white dude, and they think that is like the primary version of electability for liberals in general.
Yeah.
Or is it because he came out of the gate swinging with very leftist, like left flank policies, and that's the reason why they're forgiving of him? And I think the contest I'm paying close attention to is Abdul El-Sayed, a person who has none of the red flags whatsoever, another person that basically has an infallible reputation and has actually more experience in politics as well. He's run for the governors. He failed to defeat. I think it was Whitmer that he failed to defeat on a Medicare for all campaign, and he is the real deal, right? And he's also another early Bernie pick. He's also anti-Zionist. We shall see if liberals are just as forgiving of a brown guy that is running on a very similar campaign to Graham Plattner.
Without the tattoo.
Yeah, without the Nazi tattoo, but he's a brown guy. Does that mean that it's like scarier? My point is a white dude with a Nazi tattoo.
I think we know the answer, don't we?
Well, I
think we know the answer.
No, I don't.
As a brown person, I think I know the answer.
No, I think that's defeatist, and that's I don't abide by that. I recognize that there's a hurdle, right? There's a hurdle. There's a higher threshold, but you can climb it, and you can make up for that higher threshold by instilling messaging discipline, and then not stepping on any landmines to the best of your ability, and also just focusing on issues that the largest base actually care about. That's why I always say center the working class, because the working class, even if they don't self-identify as the working class. Pro Master says, I was a child in Iraq during the war. I didn't like Plattner and didn't support him, but I also didn't mind flipping one voice to be pro-Palestine/anti-Israel. We need all the support we can get. My thought was maybe he is bad, but a bad person against Israel is better than Collins. That was my assessment as well. That's it. And a lot of people treated that assessment as an outright, like, he is your favorite person. And there's so much evidence to suggest that I had tremendous scrutiny for Graham Plattner's campaign. But if you look at just the clips of me arguing against chatters who were making insane points, like much broader points about every fucking veteran being a certain way or all this shit. Dog, I'm sorry, but you just white-splained work twice as hard for half the reward to a woman of color. Dog, don't you think maybe I have a little bit of background in this too? Yeah, I'm saying that because I fucking believe it. Yes, I know it. What do you mean? Hello? I'm doing that in defense of Abdul al-Sayed. I'm like, look, we know how it is. I understand how it is, but it's not unfixable. It's not unsolvable. I said this about Kamala Harris too. When people were like, oh, she's a black woman. Kamala Harris is a black woman. It'll never work. And I was like, no, it doesn't matter. That's a hurdle, but it's one that you can climb. It's just going to be a harder hill to climb, but it doesn't matter. It's still climbable. What am I supposed to do? Yeah, Zahra Mamdani is proof that you can do that, right? I don't think we just cut, great candidacy short like Abdul al-Sayed, specifically because he's not a white man. That's it. But yeah, all jokes aside, lesser evil voter across the board, right? Leading up to the recent allegations, obviously, recent allegations aside, and I think, as I've said over and over again, I think he should drop out. You literally brag about the Rhodes Scholarship named after white supremacist Cecil Rhodes, and you ignored our criticism of Plattner. You have anti-blackness. You do work on it. I'm pointing to the credentials of a brown Egyptian Muslim man. This has got to be a joke, right? You can't be this Jay Sakai pilled. I don't think. This is a joke, right? Please tell me you're fucking baiting and you're joking. Like, there's no, like, you think that has anything to do with my assessment of Cecil Rhodes? Or Rhodesia or white supremacy when I point to the credentials of a person by naming the scholarship that he received? I can't understand. There's no way. I don't think you're being serious. I'm just going to move on from this. Especially because I'm literally talking about Abdul Rahman el-Sayed. Okay? I'm talking about Abdul Rahman el-Sayed. And how white people oftentimes will overlook the background and credentials of a person just because his name is Abdul Rahman el-Sayed. Chatter bringing back secret woke 0.1 alpha. Abdul Rahman Muhammad el-Sayed. It's not a joke. It's coming from a black woman. Please stop uplifting that scholarship. Okay. Sure. I apologize. I did a Bodies and Spaces. I apologize. I should have never brought up the Rhodes Scholarship that Abdurrahman El Sayed has when talking about how he is unbelievably credentialed, far more credentialed than any other person running right now. I have a lot of learning to do. Thank you. Yeah, it's true.
Senate Prime.
So Noah Rothman, this is from the National Review. Noah Rothman went on the Jake Tapper CNN broadcast talk about Mallory McMorrow. This is like right before the Plattner stuff happened. And we're gonna get to this in a second. And I also have an interesting take on this too, but we'll do that in a second. Does anyone have the FD signifier video? What gift? Here.
Someone said, why are we talking about Graham Plattner? Because I've been hearing about this.
No, not this one. Not this one. Doesn't he have another video on it? Not a recent one. No, this is the recent one called White Fatigue, right?
What
this
I'm
is,
trying to make clear here is that
no, this is from 3 hours ago. I'm not. Isn't there one that's like, I think, yeah, this is the one. Why I left the white left.
I'm putting all white leftists on timeout until further notice. I've been hanging around y'all too long, and now I have lice. And black people shouldn't get lice. That it doesn't work like that for us. Lice in America cannot survive in black hair. Y'all probably don't realize that because a lot of y'all don't be knowing shit about us, but we already off topic. And the fact that I be explaining black people shit is kind of why I have this problem in the first place. We're going to start out talking Graham Plattner a little bit because he's a great framing tool for everything I want to get off my chest. I want to be really clear. I'm going to say that a lot in this video. I don't like this dude. He feels like a seasonal villain from a prestige political drama like House of Cards or Scandal or something. I'm not saying he's a Nazi, but he's at least like Hydra or Order of the Cyclops for those of you that watched Watchmen all those years ago. He just is that guy, and it's incredibly obvious to anyone who isn't some of y'all. And this isn't just taking issue with his military service. I don't have a purity politic toward anything, really, if you know me, but definitely not ex-military people on the left. I am anti-American military. Like, I don't want to misconstrue that. But there are also Black Panthers who were ex-military. The American military spends billions of dollars marketing and propagandizing young people across this country. So I try to hold a nuanced position for how that works. But I wouldn't apply this to Plattner. 4 tours and Blackwater and a Nazi tattoo is a lot. And I know that's not a hot take. I know even more moderate folks would agree with that. So I have to wonder why and how is Plattner being pushed so hard by the establishment and the online left in general? Plattner is the latest project out of the Fight Agency. The Fight Agency is a political consultancy that was started by some ex-Bernie Sanders, ex-John Fetterman folks. And in recent years, they've been behind the success of Zohran Mamdani, as well as people like Dan Osborne, Bob Brooks, etc. And aside from Zohran Mamdani, you kind of see what's happening here. All we're missing is Hank Hill. Like, the main, mostly valid argument that I will get about Plattner is that he's one of the few folks amongst the Democrats that vows to pull military support from Israel.
Not a single taxpayer dollar should be spent.
By the way, a lot of people consistently point to me talking about Graham Plattner being an exceptional communicator as like defense. That's literally the reason why he won. Okay? He is very good at telling a fucking story and playing a role. I don't know if FD will agree with me on this, but like that's why he fucking won the goddamn primary against the established name that is the fucking governor of this state. Okay? That's just true. It's objectively true. Okay? This is, I don't think this should be beyond the fucking pale.
on arming and defending a country that commits a genocide.
And that is extremely important for Palestinian liberation. But I do have to ask, why are we being asked to not just tolerate Plattner for that reason, but to see him almost as the future of the Democratic Party and maybe even the left? Why has he become the darling of the online, predominantly white left in this time frame? Why did the fight agency scout him in the first place? It's because the fight agency knows that this image of white American exceptionalism and especially masculinity is still highly valued amongst the white masses. He's doing a reskin of the Marlboro Man, or better yet, like Don Draper, Joel Miller from The Last of Us. Literally, he looks like Walter White. And I want you to remember, all of these characters were villains. And historically, it's always straight white men that...
No one ever said that on the left side? No, I mean, I think there were a lot of people who were glazing the shit out of Graham Plattner, and that's what he's referencing. Like, look, and FD will attest to this, both in private correspondence, but also my public statements, that like I always hedged my Graham Plattner commentary with his red flags, but you know, there were definitely a lot of people that were very excited about how charismatic he presented himself as.
Fail to realize that fact about those characters. And when you're not a straight white male,
like you've been glazing Plattner for months. If there is no difference in my commentary on Graham Plattner versus what I've said and what I've done for Daria Liza, Chris Rabb, Claire Valdez, Adam Hamawi, Abdul Al-Sayed, why have I been doing any of this? Why have I been doing any of this? You hedge, but come on, man. But like, why have I been doing any of this shit? Did you see the same level of excitement, the same level of support that any number of different people received? Or was it just me arguing against chatters like yourself that would sometimes make very stupid comparisons? Like, oh, well, why not Kamala Harris then? What did I tell you? If Kamala Harris had the same platform as Graham Plattner, she would have won, okay? And yes, I would have fucking door knocked for her. Like I said, if Kamala Harris came out swinging against Israel's genocide, what did I tell you? I was like, it's too significant of a race to just fucking ignore.
You always take note of those types of fans. They may not be the worst people in the world, but they're people to observe. But the left falling for the same trick like this is not surprising when you realize that white leftists in America have never consistently had a halfway decently developed racial analysis. And this is just a historical pattern at this point. Again, shout out to a book I've been reading from Brian Quoba, Hubert Harrison, The Forbidden Genius of Black Radicalism. Hubert Harrison was a lesser known black socialist who worked and wrote in the same eras as Booker T. Washington, Du Bois, and Garvey, and was to the left of all of them during that time, including Du Bois.
I don't think Plattner's popularity up here is due to his Israel take as much as it's due to his healthcare take. No, I agree. For sure.
But in this, he also found himself confounded by the challenge of organizing with white socialists who at the time could not see past their anti-blackness to form effective solidarity and build a functional coalition. And this pattern has never stopped repeating, which is illustrated by this excerpt from Eugene Debs that's in the book. In capitalism, the Negro question is a grave one and will grow more threatening as the contradictions and complications of capitalist society multiply, Debs allowed. But this need not worry us. Let them settle the Negro question in their way if they can. We have nothing to do with it, for that is their fight. Debs here exemplified the way in which even radical white people who called for a working class revolution against capitalism could simultaneously distance themselves from the specific challenges facing the most oppressed segment of the working class. I'm bringing this up because I want to show that this is an infinite loop at this point. White leftists with little to no racial analytical frame can't help but censor their sensibilities, even in the face of obvious red flags. Or
this is 100% accurate. Okay, it's true. What do I always fucking say? There is no path to socialism, to developing socialism in this country without black socialism. Capital B, black socialism, straight up. That's it. Black people are a obviously fundamentally important part of the American working class, but beyond that, they've also been at the forefront of every civil rights and every working man's struggle in this country historically. Okay. And yes, given the unique nature of anti-blackness in this country, because the white supremacist shape always takes the form of anti-blackness at the end of the day. This doesn't mean that like anti-brown behavior is not also baked into the system. Islamophobia is also not baked into the system, but anti-blackness is very specific. It has been a fundamental plank of American culture, American existence, and therefore it needs to always have its own care and consideration.
Clearly better options if they don't appeal to their aesthetics and need to censor themselves. Why have we centered Graham Plattner when we have Chris Robb, who, from what I understand, is the furthest left candidate the Democrats have ever had in any political race? And he low-key still fits the gruff leftist daddy kink that so many of y'all seem to like. Another face that I haven't seen on my feed at all and I had to get from somebody else is Charles Booker. Booker has as progressive an agenda as you can have in mainstream politics and is in a very vulnerable red state that could use a lot more attention and support from the online left. And
the only thing I'll say here is the electoral calculation for Graham Plattner it looked far better than Booker. That's it. I mean, Booker's dope. I've talked about Charles Booker. I've talked about how, I would love to go and work with him if he wants my help. But Booker's in Kentucky. It's a far, far, far more difficult hill to climb than like what seemed to be an easy lock state in Maine, because Susan Collins is like finally going to get taken out.
Not there. Booker's not just anti-sending weapons to Israel. He's Medicare for all. He's for universal basic income, stopping data centers, decriminalizing poverty, and reparations. Is everything you can want from a mainstream politician, but he's invisible compared to Plattner. I don't follow elections much unless it's local, but I have seen Plattner's face a million times more than either Robb or Booker. Robb did spend some time with Hassan. Booker, he's got nothing as far as I can tell. Meanwhile, Plattner has tons of interviews, Majority Report, Mehdi Hassan, New York Times. Why is this happening? Why is that viable? From my perspective and experience, a lot of white leftists understand that it's bad to be racist, but they don't actually understand why racism is bad or how it works. The absence of a critical understanding of how whiteness works is why a lot of them fall for the same trick over and over, to the point where the fight agency clearly has this type built out just for y'all. If you want to vote for Plattner as an odious candidate that will help end military support to Israel, go ahead, but it should be treated as a tainted compromise for the sake of a free Palestine, not a vision for the future of the left. He should not be in our faces as much as he is. He should not have the defenders that he has that I know will show up in his comment section. He should be the online left's sneaky link that you never see in the light of day and never talk about in public. And the fact that so many white leftists don't feel this is sadly par for the course. The red flags that he has don't bother some of y'all because those red flags have never been weaponized against you. But when you're someone who's historically been targeted by this archetype, you pay attention to those patterns. You don't compromise with that. For reasons I won't get into, I've had to spend the last few weeks arguing that normalizing Nazi terminology, but wokely, is bad and that no one on the left should be doing it. And I've had some, not many, I want to be clear, but plenty of white leftists try to argue that nobody cares about Nazis, as if a couple of Nazis didn't just shoot up a mosque in San Diego just a few weeks ago, or the fact that that exact type of Nazi.
Why are we watching this victim mentality? Dog, come on. Come on. You are playing the fucking stereotype, man. This is not victim mentality, motherfucker. This is critical analysis. And also, it's correct. Like, this is the moment of vindication for FD Signifier. It's kind of ridiculous to still double down on your blind spot instead of just being like, you know what, maybe this is a good opportunity to reconsider some of the biases that I might have. It's not an accident that the people that were far more critical of Graham Plattner were people like FD Signifier, Sean the Black, Chris Rabb. Okay? Even AOC shied away from an endorsement. And if you recall, there were a lot of people who were yelling at Chris Rabb. when Chris did that interview with Crystal Ball, and I had to come in with a little bit of course correction, even in this community, where I said, look, Chris Rabb, as opposed to Graham Plattner, is someone who I have lent support to, who I have actually, gone and campaigned with and put the weight of this community behind. And there's a reason for that. Okay. Like, his skepticism turned out to be correct. Our lack, or my limited amount of skepticism, was not correct. Notwithstanding the conversations about broader issues, about like how, veterans are this or that. I'm not having that conversation right now, even though many people will take those conversations, will slam it in, or even, what kind of attacks you receive if you come out as someone who is critical of Israel. Because if you recall, like, Squirrel also immediately, Zay Squirrel also immediately was like, this guy's a fucking no good candidate, and is bad, Blackwater mercenary. But even Zay Squirrel, alongside myself, had the same exact assessment with the New York Times report, right? Where they also said the same thing I did, that this kind of feels like a hit job. It turns out that there was a lot more evidence that the New York Times did not report on for one reason or another. It's remarkable that they did not report on those reasons and simply left the assessment of this allegation as someone who had one weird moment with Graham Plattner, but ultimately was fine with Graham Plattner. It turns out she wasn't fine with that, right? Don't throw a majority report under the bus. I'm never going to throw a majority report under the bus. I'm not going to throw Kyle Kalinske under the bus. I think it's important to recognize blind spots, myself included. Having said that, I totally understand why they were in support. A lot of these people that were in support of Graham Plattner were also in support of Kamala Harris in ways that were far more meaningful than, my assessment of that race, right? They were doing harm reduction and lesser evil voting arguments. This is consistent with their principle, right? If someone is going to do harm reduction arguments for Kamala Harris, then of course they're going to make, of course they're going to be in the tank for Graham Plattner. FD was in support of Kamala too. Yeah. Did you not hear him literally also do? Yes. FD Signifier is also a harm reductionist. Okay. He literally said, look, you're going to vote for Graham Plattner. Just don't make him the face of the movement. That's all he's saying. And I think a lot of people don't listen to the nuanced criticism here. He is quite literally saying, look, if you're going to vote for Graham Plattner, that's fine. But like, there's obviously a lot of red flags and you shouldn't make him the face of a movement. You shouldn't be giving him this much coverage. You know what I mean? I think you didn't go as hard on him as the same reason people get scammed because you wanted it to be true. Of course I wanted him to be the base, like, commie former veteran that is like anti-imperialist, but he's like hiding his fucking he's hiding how radical he is. Turns out he was hiding his real experiences, just not in the direction that I hoped he was. But once again, the skepticism still remained. It was something that I wanted to make a personal assessment on. And unfortunately, well, I guess not even unfortunately, I guess I fortunately never had the opportunity to do so, especially considering, holy shit, the amount of cooking that I'd be receiving in this circumstance probably be even harder than that, regardless of the fact that I didn't lend him the same level of support at all. You had chatters in here saying that FD was calling you out for making him the face of the movement. Nobody listens to what they watch anymore, man. I know.
terrorism happens like every 6 to 18 months in America. And it's impossible to remain in community or struggle with people who don't seem to mind that, who always put themselves first, especially when the struggle isn't about them in the first place. And after half a decade online, I'm tired of seeing this pattern and repeating these same complaints. But the problem is that this entire space has always catered to a specific type of white guy online, and that's what it was built for and what it always probably will be. See, BreadTube emerged as a venue to rehabilitate right-wing edgelords into leftist progressives, all after the rise of the alt-right. It has always had an extremely high tolerance for what Graham Plattner is, because he's just like them for real. And while not every aspect of BreadTube has catered to this reformed edgelord Reddit troll archetype, it's clear that this element of the space remains influential and often sets the tone for the space. Because even if these types don't make up the largest part of our audiences, they're almost always the loudest part, always the most online and the most active of the bunch. So let's talk about some drama for a bit. For years, I have not responded to drama publicly, and any drama from other creators whose opinions I don't care about, you haven't heard me talk about it publicly. And the reason for this is people don't care. People don't care about petty squabbles between creators that agree with each other 90% of the time. None of this is really material to any useful action toward a free Palestine or any social issue that you might care about. So rarely do I dedicate time to it.
And also people will couch a lot of content creators, like their entire thing is just their output, right? Which is content. And if they actually swing in the direction of drama, if they start swinging their content in the direction of drama, they start generating a lot of value. They start, generating revenue off of that. And obviously, if they're a political commentator, they can't simply be only the drama channel. So they have to put a layer of political criticism on top of the actual drama that they're engaging in. And there are a lot of people who do this. I try to stay away from this all the time. Unfortunately, YouTube monetizes it. But let's be real. There are a shit ton of content creators. I'm not going to name any fucking names, okay? There are a shit ton of content creators who almost entirely focus on drama. And they simply add a little bit of political shine to it to make it seem like there are serious political disagreements here, and this is a serious advocacy, and these are very important disagreements that must be addressed. When in fact all they're doing is shit stirring, lying about the background of individuals, and adding a good deal of like click chasing and clickbaiting into the process. Okay.
In a serious sense. Some creators,
they moralize the drama, and oftentimes the drama is not even about political disagreements. It's about personal grievances that they cannot that they cannot simply come out and admit is a personal grievance. You do this too. There's not a single person that I've ever done this to, and as a matter of fact, the evidence of that is even at times when I've agreed with something that Destiny has said. And that motherfucker has spent the last 7 years of his entire life trying to focus every single bit of his political output on doing exactly what I just said. If someone, even if I despise them, if someone is on the right side of an issue, and they come out and it's a broken clock situation, I will say it. Okay. Yeah. You don't do this to Ben Shapiro. Yeah, I don't.
Just thrive off drama and they can't attract an audience. Otherwise, I am not one of those creators. So I want to apologize up front to the vast majority of people who will watch this and have no clue where this is coming from. But with that in mind, I won't be naming names. And to be clear, a lot of the things I'm going to say aren't going to be intended explicitly towards a few people. And it's more so me responding to a problem I've been seeing forever in the space as a whole. But before I even go there, let me clarify some things. I am unequivocally a supporter of a free Palestine. I see Palestine as a colonized nation, and no, I do not think Israel has a right to exist because it is an imperial project and cannot exist as anything but an imperial project. I do not even condemn Hamas. And I've had this stance on decolonization for years. If you pay attention, I don't know if this is a shocking thing to hear me say. It's only that probably if you haven't been paying attention, but a lot of y'all only We'll get there. You cannot put limitations on how colonized people fight their oppressors. So no, I won't condemn Hamas the same way I wouldn't condemn the Mau Mau's in Kenya or the Nat Turner slave rebellions or the Haitian Revolution or the IRA in Ireland. All of these entities were called terrorists at the time of their existence by their oppressors, and all are recognized as liberation movements today, despite the ugliness those movements may have existed in. And I believe Hamas will eventually be seen in the same light. I would love if violence didn't have to occur. And there are anti-colonial movements that do happen to occur with minimal violence, but it's not fair to call any anti-colonial violence senseless, because it is a direct response to the condition that the colonized are living under. And the thing to keep in mind is that Palestinians didn't just start getting genocided by Israel on October 7, 2023. Now, I've seen people say that I've said nothing about the genocide in 3 years, and those people do not watch me. I've expressed my support for Palestine in multiple videos across multiple channels. One thing I'm really interested in with Palestine right now is because there's very obviously bad faith actors trying to involve themselves on all sides of the issue. Oh shit, it's 4,000 people in here. What the fuck? Let's talk about Palestine, motherfuckers. There are students across the country at college campuses protesting and putting their personal lives and futures in jeopardy for free Palestine. There are professors getting arrested and detained right up the street from where I live at this point, at Emory University. Limbaugh's a racist, Glenbeck is a racist, Gaza Strip was getting bombed, Obama didn't say shit. Did Lupe Fiasco, one of the biggest rappers in the world, low-key say free Palestine way back in 2011? Yes. Yes, he did. But my content is made for Black people, and the people I'm talking about usually are not Black. And so some of these newfound critics will just lie and say I've been silent, and this is being used to paint me as a person who is both sizing a genocide or a liberal Zionist or a Philo-Semite. I have very purposely never presented myself as a key voice on Palestine, which I don't think anyone sincerely is asking me for, but that has allowed for, I'll say, unprincipled people to make up narratives about my position when I dare to say something as bold as,
hey, maybe don't use Nazi dog whistles because you had a disagreement with someone on Twitter.
And instead of acknowledging that reasonable and extremely low bar of decency in this space, folks would rather accuse me of being a liberal Zionist. And I think the only reason why this FD doesn't care about Palestine narrative has gotten legs, because I didn't make a definitive FD signifier Palestine video on my main channel. And some may see that as a lack of conviction, so let me clear that up as well. First, I want to engage with this idea that a video on Palestine would have been bad for my channel in some form or fashion. And this is just not based in reality. In fact, the opposite is true. Palestine videos, especially 2 years ago, were very popular. Sean's Palestine video 2 years ago is his second most watched video of the last 5 years. And even today, videos on the genocide can pull in good views. You never know how the
How much longer does he talk about like his own personal background? Because I know FD's takes. I know his position on this. He's just like addressing the drama, and I don't know if it's like pertinent to the conversation that we're having about Graham Plattner. And you guys should watch the video. I mean, it already got almost 500,000 views. Is the rest of it just drama, like related, where he's just like discussing his perspective in general? What are you looking for? I'll give you a timestamp. Oni, oh yeah, Oni edited this. Oni, is the rest of it not about Plattner? Racism isn't drama? No, racism isn't drama. But he's talking about the racist attacks that he's receiving. And I'm watching this video specifically on his accurate assessment on Graham Plattner, the red flags, and why a lot of people don't see it. A lot of people stream on here just watching you. I don't get why they even stream. What? I don't know. Like,
multinational data mining platform so they could advertise AI girlfriends and PragerU in between me talking about political prisoners and Black revolutionaries. It's just felt gross. Further, in the aftermath, I was somehow branded as a prison reform expert. Like, I remember having people reach out to me to play themselves, but don't tell
Oni says, like, go back to 21.
People to make up for his past sins. And my rehab is, trying to say distorted, and you literally cannot fix it. I know that a lot of these white leftists have zero shame, zero self-awareness, and zero interest in actual coalition building on this platform if it means they might have to decenter themselves. And that brings me back to Plattner. Plattner is popular because he's BreadTube personified. He is the former edgelord rehabilitated into the hero for oppressed people to make up for his past sins. And mind you, every piece of anti-colonial liberation theory that you will ever read will tell you that the colonized must free themselves, but don't tell that to your favorite BreadTuber or favorite BreadTube fan, because they'll swear that it's them that's the key to liberation for insert other group here. But further, Plattner shows the failure of the American left presenting a principled anti-Zionist stance to a larger general public. I've noticed in my personal life and online that there's been a rise in what I'm going to describe as America First anti-Zionism. And normally when I make up a new term, I want credit for it, but please do not repeat. I'm positive there is somebody more worthy, some actual Palestinian scholar that is saying the exact same thing I'm saying. So find them and give them credit for that term. But Plattner is a perfect example of what that is.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is this: we are all victim to our environment, okay? And what we see and what we do, it shapes our reality, it shapes our worldview, and sometimes we end up engaging in analysis that might betray a broader systemic factor that's not being seen. I will stand by the notion that I have over and over again, that I've repeated over and over again. Graham Plattner is not a product of the online left. Graham Plattner was hand-selected by, I guess, the fight agency. But having said that, what made Graham Plattner popular was not the online left. The online left, Majority Report, myself, if you consider me to be a major booster of Graham Plattner, Pod Johns, these people have a lot of influence, but they cannot make or break elections, no matter how big or small. Graham Plattner became a national figure because people in Maine voted for him. Liberals in Maine voted for him. And this is very important to identify and understand. We have to recognize this, because that is who voted for Graham Plattner, and that's who might even still to this day want Graham Plattner to remain in the race. Okay? I don't think Graham Plattner was carried into victory by BreadTubers or Majority Report or myself or any number of different people, right? Unless you personally think, if your argument is, Hasan, you've done Graham Plattner, you're the reason why Graham Plattner ran, you're the reason why this issue is happening, you found him, you hand-selected him, you work for the fight agency, whatever, right? If that's your assessment, and there are some who are maybe leaning into that direction a little bit, okay? What you have to remember is, do you think I have, or do you think Majority Report has captivated the minds of every 65-plus-year-old college-educated white suburbanite in Maine? Do you think that's the reason why Graham Plattner is successful? Because they were all locked in on the Majority Report? Or do you think that there was genuine momentum behind his candidacy at a time when people were looking for someone to express their left populist rage? Okay? The reason why this is very important, to identify is because the replacement has to, in some way, shape, or form, embody that left populist rage. Because if that doesn't happen, a lot of people are going to be very frustrated and they're not going to vote, and they're going to think, oh, they rat fucked him. And I think that there are a lot of people in Maine that probably don't even want him to drop out. We've seen that. On Twitter, everyone's like, Graham Plattner, you got to drop out. On Blue Sky, they're doing victory laps, okay? But on Instagram, on Facebook, where the normies are, they fucking love Graham. On TikTok comments, people are saying, you shouldn't drop out, King. This is an Israel concocted narrative. Okay? They're saying that shit's fake. Politicians are calling him to drop out, but the voters are saying remain in the race, King. Okay? That's important. That's important to understand. That's important to identify. I'm not saying this is correct. I'm not saying this is good. Okay? What I'm saying is this. That's how much legitimacy he was able to garner. That's how much there is an appetite for a change candidate that people, paired up with their lack of interest due to patriarchal constructs, their lack of interest in recognizing a rape victim when they see one, right? And the amount of influencing power a white man has, the amount of Teflon that a white male candidate clearly has, especially when they come from a veteran background where people are just like, that's my fucking guy. I will ride into the depths of hell. That's why I've said, ironically enough, this is the true liberal Trump. Okay? This is the true liberal Trumpian candidacy. That we have to take note. We have to take note of where the success came from. And we have to factor that into who the replacement should be.
Because while he does claim to want to stop aid from Israel, he also wants to improve military recruitment. So he is not against American imperialism like you might think, which undermines any anti-Israeli stance he holds. And that's typical of pretty much all the Democrats right now. The sad reality is that the Democratic Party and the alleged progressive leaders in America have allowed themselves to be outmaneuvered on Zionism by the likes of Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who, unlike anti-Zionists on the left, are in fact obvious anti-Semites. Tucker Carlson is a crypto white supremacist who has spent years trying to normalize the Great Replacement theory, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is a former QAnon adherent who brought us Jewish space lasers and believes in blood light. Yet both are being mainstreamed in a way that I wouldn't have thought possible just a few years ago. People like Carlson and Green have infinitely more reach and influence than any of your favorite bread tubers, and thus they have been able to frontline this American first anti-Zionism, and it's become a popular position. It feels like for the first time ever, and this is a good thing, and I'll explain why in a second, anti-Zionism is a popular sentiment to hold, but anti-Zionism that is America first is letting America off the hook for its role in that genocide. I've had a lot of people, both online and in my encounters in real life, smart people, say something along the lines of Israel is controlling America, and no, the tail does not wag the dog. Israel is a settler colonial project built on genocide and mass murder. America is a settler colonial project built on genocide and mass murder, among other things. Game recognized game. There are, of course, Zionists in American government and plenty of Zionists who are at the helm of powerful American institutions. And our current president does seem uniquely compromised in his ability to not be influenced, not just by Israel, but everyone. Like, it's everybody gets a piece of our president. But please believe that confluence of power between Israel and Zionists in America is not some secret, like, mystical thing. That's just how power and capitalists have always worked. One example of this America first anti-Zionism is, like, people often say America was forced or tricked into a war with Iran due to Israel, but this ignores the history of hostility that America has had with Iran. Iran, as a sovereign, strong nation, has been able to withstand American influence and thus impedes on America's dominance of that region and the resources that Iran controls, even with Israel sitting at Iran's doorstep. And Israel, because of its Zionist nature, has always wanted to attack Iran, along with everyone else in that region for years. But for the longest, America has not allowed them to, because most American presidents fully understood that we probably can't win a war with Iran, which, if you're paying attention, is clearly correct. But that doesn't mean that we didn't desire to do the exact same thing Israel did. This is why you see so many other American politicians wanting more action from America in Iran, low-key on both sides of the aisle. America has not just allowed, but has encouraged Israel to be exactly what it is for decades at this point. It's just that this time around, Palestinians were able to show the world what is happening to them. And I want to be clear, Palestinians do not care and should not care how they get free or who in America is going to bring them to that point. If they get free because of a right-wing regime ushered in by Tucker Carlson decides to act on their innate hatred of Jewish people and pull support from Israel, that's an us problem. That's not a them problem. There's a great short essay from Laith Marouf, again, I apologize if I got that wrong, where he's responding to a recent interview where Norm Finkelstein basically says exactly what I'm saying here, but Marouf comes back to reiterate that none of that is a Palestinians' concern. Baruch says literally, why is it so hard to believe that America first could actually be Israel last? So if the left, and by that, I don't just mean us here on YouTube, although we are somewhat to blame, if the left can't present a crystal clear principle stance against Zionism to combat the nationalistic and ultimately fascist version that's taking a hold everywhere, including somewhat on the left, then we're fucked and we deserve it.
I don't like how Hassan is framing the situation as the online left has no responsibility in platforming Plattner in a positive way, regardless of how main voters voted. It's just a lack of accountability. It's my least favorite statement. It's my least favorite word. And I know people will clip this and be like, oh, yeah, see, he hates accountability. It just doesn't mean anything. Okay? It just doesn't mean anything. Like, what do you mean? Hold, like, I say it too at times. But, like, what does it mean? What would accountability look like? Like, what would you want me to do? What would you want, I don't know, like Majority Report to do? Because I saw pieces of Emma's takes earlier where she did hold herself accountable. Like she said, look, I apologize. I was duped by this person to a certain degree. I really pushed for this person. But like in my situation, it's like, what do you want me to not cover the fucking main Senate race at all? Calling out the Nazi tattoo? Why did so many people minimize that? Wait, but I did do that. So what? I did numerous tweets, numerous extensive hours of coverage. So what do you want me to do about that? Like, answer clearly. Use your words. Like, what would you like me to do about that? That was actually a big part of my criticism as well. So I think for a lot of people, it turns into, it basically turns into like this whole thing where it's like, I want you to satisfy my needs. Like, I'm watching this video because there were red flags that I myself also overlooked in terms of in an effort to maintain some kind of like stable left populist momentum, right? Not overlooked necessarily because I did bring them up, but it wasn't enough for me to be like, fuck this guy. And if you're asking me to say fuck this guy when the alternative was Susan Collins or Janet Mills, I wasn't going to do that, right? There is a level of buildup that we had to reach for me to say that. Okay. Does that make sense? I mean, this is something that I've made, I think, very clear. Something that I've made very clear over and over again is that like there is a level of there's a level of like accusation pile on, especially where it's coming from is also important because a lot of these accusations weren't just coming from the anti-imperialist left flank, some of the ultras in this community, some of the wreckers in this community who were actually saying unhinged things, as opposed to like reasonable critique. But yeah, I mean, this is me talking about his tattoo. You know what, Platter being a Nazi? Yes, of course I'll be speaking about that as well. Dude, you think this community is going to let me live that down? Are you kidding me? My most ethical voting decision in Maine. It is to me, okay? I've already made my most. So I think people are rightfully mad that you dismissed the New York Times allegations, especially considering Rascott is mentioned in the name in the article. No, I stand by that. You actually did defend the tattoo at the time, but there isn't anything I or any of us should demand you do. I stand by that. The New York Times report. Should we go back to the New York Times reporting on Rasico? And no, I did not defend the Nazi tattoo. Should we go back and read the New York Times report on Rasico? Do you guys want to go through that again? Because the New York Times literally said it was worrying. That's it. that Rasko had a troublesome. The New York Times report said Rasko had a troublesome experience. They did not put down the credible accusations of rape that Rasko made in the Politico report. If the New York Times, as a matter of fact, ironically enough, at the time I said, if the New York Times report had a credible accusation of rape, that would be an irredeemable red line. I don't think you remember my coverage of the New York Times report. And it wasn't just even about Rasko. I said that there was a Republican operative, right, Fifield, who had made accusations, the primary accusations of the New York Times report anchored around. And those accusations, according to the New York Times' own assessment, did not reach that standard. According to Fifield's own assessment, did not reach that same standard. And at the time I said, look, regardless of whether Fifield is a Republican operative or not, if she had contemporaneous conversations at the time with a serious accusation of rape, then that would be the red line. That would be considered irredeemable. I was very clear on this. It wouldn't even matter that she is a Republican operative at that point, because that would be a red line. That would be an irredeemable red line. Hold on. In any case, this was the white fatigue.
Clear here
FD
is that
streams.
Rob, myself, Sean DeBlack, a lot of other black folks, we have explained this to y'all before. That's the real black fatigue. That, like, literally, that is what black fatigue actually is. Is black folks being tired of having.
He literally had rape allegations before this. Why are we being obtuse now? No, he didn't. He did not. What are you talking about? I said what I said, y'all. This was a blind spot for y'all in this space. I'm speaking from my experience as a black man who sees shit like this and understand why this space struggles with POC. Where is the rape allegation? No. You can say you were skeptical because you've seen, charismatic white men dupe a lot of people. That's fair. That's what FD Signifier's assessment is. Okay? But you can't say there was already like credible rape allegations and people just overlooked it. Where were the credible rape allegations? You can't just like drop that in here. The Politico article that actually solidified this reporting unironically also reported that there were no rape allegations against Graham Plattner up until that reporting. Up until yesterday, up until 24 hours ago, there were no credible rape allegations or rape allegations at all. So where are you coming from with this?
Having to explain racism to white people. Let's get into this nonsense. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So I haven't actually watched any of the coverage. I've just seen the aftermath.
Okay, this is 48 minutes long. And it's just a stream comp, right? I'll wait for a cleaned up version of this. But I will be watching the debate live. Whoever said Plattner was the face of the movement, that's Mamdani in my head. Yeah. As a black woman who's skeptical of him the whole time, he did not have rape allegations. As soon as the New York Times article came out, I knew it was coming. I knew he likely did it during his time terrorizing people in the Middle East. It needs to be okay for people to say, I found out more information. I was wrong. I'll be more cautious in the future. Yeah. Well, that's why I'm watching the FD Signifier video, right? Anyway, Zora Mamdani was asked about Graham Plattner earlier today, and he, of course, also said that Graham Plattner should drop out, obviously.
I wanted to ask, given that you have a sort of ascendant role in the Democratic Party, could you talk about the Maine Senate race? Do you think that Graham Plattner should drop out of the race? And do you have any intention of endorsing any candidates in competitive races outside of New York, El Said, or anyone else?
No, I believe that it's time for him to drop out of the race. And when it comes to my own endorsements, I've made 8 endorsements at the state and federal level. They've all been right here in New York City. I'm incredibly excited at the fact that they won their races, and that's where my focus is for now.
This motherfucker's always got some shit to say and drip to wear. Okay? I'm sick and tired of it. I'll say it. I'm sick and tired of it. You got to redistribute the drip, my man. You can't just be wearing the drip just by yourself, all on your own lonesome. Okay? What kind of socialism is this shit? What kind of socialism is this shit? It turns out I am now a reactionary conservative. It turns out they were right. Okay? It turns out they were fucking right. The Republicans were right. Socialism only means the tippy top gets the drip. Nobody else. Yeah, drip for me, not for thee.
You know, I think the focus of today should be to respond to the gravity of what so many of us have read. And I think that the only appropriate response is for the campaign to come to an end.
We turn now to a stunning new allegation rocking a pivotal contest for the U.S. Senate in November. Maine Democratic nominee Graham Plattner is accused of rape by a woman he once dated, a claim Plattner denies. At least 13 Democrats are now calling on Plattner to drop out of the race. Caitlin Huey-Burns is on Capitol Hill. Caitlin, good morning.
Good morning to you, Natalie. Well, Graham Plattner is vigorously denying this allegation, but he did say he is taking time to reflect on the path forward. And Democrats in Maine and across the country are calling on him to drop out ahead of a key ballot deadline just days away.
Graham Plattner, once considered a rising star in the Democratic Party, now facing an allegation of sexual assault from a woman he alleged to have dated 5 years ago. Jenny Rassicott told Politico she first met Plattner in 2019 and that their relationship...
Isn't it fucking weird that there wasn't this level of outrage from people like Shannon Watts and Neera Tanden and Eric Swalwell? I wonder why. Yeah, because for the record, Neera Tanden is a massive Clinton booster. She worked with the Clintons her whole life. Okay? They don't give a shit about rape allegations if it's their guy. We care about it, right? They don't have any fucking consistency. Get the hell out of here. What are we doing? They rode for Andrew Cuomo against Zohran Mamdani. Speaking of Zohran Mamdani, new AP polling on Jewish Americans, Mamdani, 44% favorable, 39% unfavorable. Mamdani is at a +5 with American Jews. Netanyahu is at a -27 with American Jews. And Trump is at a -42 with American Jews. Interesting. Yeah. Replace Zohran Mamdani with the word Israel, and it's not so funny, is it? That's right. Replace the name Zohran Mamdani with anti-Semitism, and all of a sudden, you see a very different picture. Not so funny, is it? How about that? 30% of Jewish adults say Israel has committed genocide, although about half, 49%, say it has not. This is being base boosted generationally. Easy explanation. 30% of those surveyed are imbeciles. This guy says. How crazy is it that about 1/3 of Americans in massive erosion? AP NORC poll, about 3 in 10 U.S. adults believe Israel has committed a genocide against the Palestinians. Devastating numbers, by the way, for the truth. Devastating numbers. Americans are still, by and large, the most propagandized population. Like North Korea levels, straight up. Like what we perceive as happening in North Korea is unironically happening in America. And it's far more sinister in some respects because it's not so like direct and deliberate and flagrant, right? It's just like people genuinely think that there is no propaganda that's at play here, which makes it somehow more insidious. Also, speaking of propaganda, we haven't carried the flame in a couple days. We're at level 3 on the hype train right now. If you want to carry the flame, please subscribe, which you can do for $6 or for free. Okay, you can subscribe for $6 or for free, or by gifting a sub. Level 3 hype train at level 10 hype train. We carry the flame as always. Let's continue.
Was consensual. Until one night in 2021, when she alleges Plattner came to her home uninvited, forced her to have sex after she repeatedly told him to stop. She told Politico Plattner was, quote, almost blackout drunk, and said, quote, I remember the specific moment where I thought to myself, like, this is no longer my choice. In a separate interview with CNN, Rassicot claimed she feared for her safety.
He violated multiple layers of consent
Kaya.
that night by
Kaya,
coming into my home.
what are you doing?
When I asked him not to, and by advancing on me when I told him not to.
Plattner, after postponing campaign events in recent days, responded in a video Monday afternoon.
I wanted to directly address the troubling, serious, and false allegations against me. Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorical.
Here's another thing that we found out, okay? You know how we found out that, there is no, like, real viable constituency of anti-Israel, anti-war sentiment on the right? You know how, like, simply being anti-Israel is not going to carry you to a victory if Donald Trump is against you, as we saw with the Thomas Massey equation? There is no liberal Trump, at least for the time being, okay? Because this is the liberal Trump moment. And the liberal voters, in my opinion, will probably crater in their support for Graham Plattner after this accusation. And therefore, turns out, you can't have a serious rape accusation as a liberal that is also an outsider too. When the institutions are not defending you, when the institutions have their knives out for you anyway, you're not going to be able to pull a Trump. Okay, you're not going to be able to pull a Trump, which I don't think is a bad thing. For the record, I just want to state my position on this. It's not a bad thing. That is a good thing. New York Times reporting that backs up your claims about the viewpoint of Maine voters. Of the nearly 24 Democrats interviewed in the state on Tuesday, most said they expected Mr. Plattner to drop out of the race. Most said it was the right course. His ideas were great, but he has way too much baggage now, said John Murray, 80 years old, a retired mail carrier from Saco. But several, including Mr. Murray, said they would probably stick with Mr. Plattner, 41, if he opted to remain on the ballot. The deadline for the candidate to formally withdraw from the race is Monday. We'd vote for a swamp frog or anyone that defeats Susan Collins, Mr. Murray said. Is it even fair to say that someone should have known this would happen? I mean, the only people I think that should have known this would happen were the people who did not sufficiently and thoroughly investigate Graham Plattner's background. Let's be real. I think a lot of people that saw Graham Plattner deliver a speech in a very convincing manner they fell in love with him. They were like, this guy has unbelievable talent in comparison to what Maine normally has. He has the look, the build, the CV that is, obviously not great for our perspective, but certainly something that Mainers responded positively to. And that was it. Because I don't see any reason why people try to make it seem as though, like, Graham Plattner was not an effective communicator. I don't know why people make this argument for some reason. Like, he, as I've said time and time again, regardless of skepticism or scrutiny, very clearly was connecting with Maine voters. And the reason why he was able to do that is because he was a very effective communicator. That's it. Yeah, coming out of the gate swinging with a Bernie endorsement day one, obviously frame one also helped him. But guess what, guys? It didn't help him as much as it helped, or it didn't help Abdul El-Sayed in the same way. This was always a tale of two races from my perspective. And I always made that comparison. Abdul El-Sayed also started early. Abdul El-Sayed also started frame one with a Bernie endorsement. And yet Abdul El-Sayed did not get the national attention until Haley Stevens and Mallory McMorrow, more importantly than Haley Stevens, came out and started yelling at Abdul El-Sayed because he had made at the time they thought it was an unwise decision. Turns out it was a very wise decision. Made the decision to campaign alongside a dangerous radical like myself. That's when that campaign became a national campaign. That's when people started paying close attention to Abdul El-Sayed. So why is it that Abdul al-Sayed did not get that national recognition. That is ironically what FD Signifier was pointing to. Is Abdul not charismatic? Of course he is. And on top of that, he had the background. He had the experience. So why did he not get the same recognition? 2 candidates, 2 Senate races. 2 candidates, 2 Senate races. What gives? He is no Plattner in regards to charisma. I think you're wrong. Are you kidding me? He's great. Have you listened to his stump speech? It's fantastic. It's just as exciting as Graham Plattner's is. This is also the Abdul story, though he had started with a leg up because he'd run before and had a different resume. Town halls everywhere, making himself much more available and visible to Dems than Stevens. McMurray did this too. It just didn't work as well. No, I disagree with David a little bit, with Weigel a little bit. Okay? I think a large part of Plattner's success in the primary, beyond expressing what his mainstream Dem view on Gaza, was holding town halls, laying out his views, and answering questions after questions. It's rare for polls to do that. He did that 80 plus. Agreed. But so did Abdul. So why was Abdul's chances nowhere near as good as Graham Plattner's was? I think it's because a lot of people don't pay attention to radical candidates that embody that carry that populist rage in their attitude, in their policy, when those candidates aren't white guys. It's true. This was my primary point that I made over and over again. And there are still racist motherfuckers in the centrist democratic forces, the pro-Israel forces, that are trying to say Abdul doesn't have the juice, saying that Abdul doesn't have the credentials, the background. He has too many red flags, they say. What are those red flags? We ask what those red flags are, and there's never a decent answer for it beyond taking the long road home to say he's Muslim and brown. Okay? That's it. That's it. Anyway, let's get back to the story.
False.
The oyster farmer and Marine veteran is no
He's very Failenial coded, to be fair. Abdul, yes, but that's not a negative. That's a positive. I mean, Zoran was too. This is the age of the Failenial, folks. While I find some of those instincts to be cringy, I think wine moms have a very different attitude. Okay? Let's be real. Zoran did a good number, a good deal of Failenial stuff as well. I think it is absolutely the age of the Failenial.
stranger to controversies. During his primary
For good reason, we're skipping generation lead poisoning.
campaign, he faced scrutiny over a tattoo he later covered up after critics said it resembled a Nazi symbol and claims of toxic behavior from alleged previous romantic partners. Plattner has denied those allegations, but said during that time he had been struggling with undiagnosed PTSD and was self-medicating with alcohol.
Regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict, we are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward.
Now, this is one of those key races that could help determine which party has control of the U.S. Senate. And the pressure is building here on Plattner to drop out. Get this. He has until July 13th to drop out of the race. And then the state Democratic Party in Maine could pick his replacement to take on longtime incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins in November. Gail.
Well, July 13th is next week. The clock is ticking. Thank you, Caitlin. CBS News political contributor, and Democratic strategist, that's Joel Payne, joins us now from Washington. Joel, many Democrats who stood by him are now saying he's got to go. Elizabeth Warren, Ro Khanna. And then some are looking at the Democrats and saying, why did it take this for you all to finally say he's got to go? What do you think is going to happen now?
Well, look, the hill is very high for Plattner to scale to stay in the race. Not just national Democrats are speaking out against him, but a lot of local voices. The main Democratic Party, some members of the main congressional delegation have called for Plattner to step aside. And look, these allegations are damning and they're serious. And I think that what a lot of Democrats are wrestling with right now is how did we get here? I think we got here because a candidate caught fire and really built a brand in the state.
This guy's a smaller head than you. I think is really inappropriate that you guys have this kind of attitude every time someone has broad shoulders. Okay? I think it's messed up. You guys see a broad-shouldered individual and you immediately assume that their head size is tiny. It's not. Okay? It's not the case. This is a perspective issue. Okay? And it's a significant issue, and I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of it, okay? What is this? Glad you finally got your first lead acting. Wide shoulders equals wide bed from my husband's short film. Okay, this might be literally age restricted. I'm not going to watch it.
And really built trust with voters. This is not a candidate who is someone who was placed in this position by national donors or national influencers. This is someone who really caught on locally. And when you have that, and you have an
thank God someone is making that assessment. Jesus Christ, it's definitely one that is unfortunately lost in the tit for tat shit slinging battle that's been taking place over the last 24 hours of this news cycle. Everyone has taken this credible rape accusation and has used it to pull out their I told you so's back and forth when no one, for some fucking weird reason, one, understands the significance of this, the significance of this problem, right, for the Senate majority, because the Senate majority means investigations, accountability, hurdles in front of the Trump administration, right? Like that's an absolute necessity. I cannot stress this enough, okay? And the other problem is that if you don't recognize what forces gave Graham Plattner his national prominence, if you simply think it's like, leftist Carhartt wearing phonies who know what the working class truly is. If you think that that's the case, then you're failing to comprehend the hundreds of thousands of Mainers that voted for him from not that background, right? It's incredibly stupid. All that remains for Graham Plattner is to make the reasonable and considerate choice and not follow his own short-sighted, selfish desires. Imagine getting rid of your Nazi tattoo for nothing. Bro's probably pissed. He's like, dude, that's my emotional support Nazi tattoo, you fucking asshole.
Untested candidate who's never been vetted nationally. These are the types of things that a lot of Democrats fear could happen.
Well, and he has been leading in the polls against Republican Susan Collins, Joel. And he's already won the primary. But what would the process look like then if the Democrats would choose to go with another candidate? As we said, the clock is ticking. They have until early next week.
Yeah, well, as Caitlin alluded to, he's got until July 13th to decide whether or not to drop out of the race. And then there's a 2-week period until July 27th where local Democrats could choose somebody to replace Plattner on the ticket. Now, there are already rumblings of the types of folks who could potentially replace him. Someone like Troy Jackson, who was a Democratic candidate for governor recently, Narav Shah, who's also a candidate for local office, are some of the names. And of course, there's Janet Mills, who Plattner defeated in the Democratic primary, who's the sitting governor of the state right now as well. Those are some of the folks who people are discussing. I think what's challenging here for Democrats is making sure that if there is a change in candidate on the ballot, that Maine voters are people who have actually the say. This is not a decision that's put upon Maine voters, but this is a decision that comes from Maine voters. And I think that's a priority for a lot of folks who are thinking about what happens next.
All right, Joel Payne, thank you.
A woman who dated Maine U.S. Senate candidate Graham Plattner.
What happens if, one, he doesn't drop out? Does he still win or lose by a landslide? Two, what happens if they put a centrist Democrat back in the race? I suspect that he's using the threat of staying in the race to make sure that they don't fucking navigate they don't, the centrist Democrats don't put like a fucking dog shit candidate who will literally lose the support of the ground. Like, I cannot stress this enough. Look, it doesn't matter. This is not about Graham Plattner, right? He's out. That's clear. But if the Democrats come in and they're like, well, it's Janet Mills time, I cannot begin to explain to you how bad that will be, because it'll be a twofer. One, a lot of people that voted for Graham Plattner will not vote for Janet Mills because they voted against Janet Mills. They voted for Graham Plattner. Okay? Like, I cannot, dude, this is unique. My unique fresh hell, okay? My unique fresh hell, specifically because this is not one, but two different Kamala Harris 2.0 situations. And maybe even a taste of Hillary Rodham Clinton, okay? Fuck, my hair is out of control. Because there's two scenarios here, both in Maine and Michigan, where the Democrats are salivating at the fucking prospect of pulling another operation where they just do a no primary, hand-selected Democratic establishment candidate. Okay? That's what's going on here. Terrifying prospect. Terrifying prospect. New York had his back, baby. Yeah. Anyway, let's take a look at Senator Bernie
After a woman
Sanders.
came forward in recent hours accusing Maine Senate candidate Graham Plattner in a 2021 sexual assault, several top Democrats asking Plattner to get out of the race. And now we're hearing from Senator Bernie Sanders.
Wait, did something happen with Abdul? No, they're just trying to use the Plattner situation to fucking shit sling at Abdul. It's insane. But they are literally trying to they are literally trying to put Haley Stevens in there, who's basically Hillary Rodham Clinton, basically Kamala Harris. Both of these people lost Michigan to Trump. Okay?
Vermont independent senator who confirms he got on the phone to talk to Plattner today and asked Plattner to step aside. The new allegations reported by Politico and CNN made by Jenny Rassicoat. She's a 41-year-old woman who dated Plattner 5 years ago, claims he forced her to have sex despite objecting.
He violated multiple layers of consent that night by coming into my home when I asked him not to, and by advancing on me when I told him not to.
So let's talk about it live to CBS News political director Finn Gomez in Washington. Any response from Team Plattner yet?
No, not yet. As of we do know that, after the story first broke, Plattner issued a statement Monday denying the new allegations from his former romantic partner, Jenny Rassicoat, calling them, quote, categorically false, and issued a campaign video soon after the story first broke. Plattner called the allegations, quote, troubling, serious, and false in a statement, and said accusations of non-consensual behavior as categorically untrue. The candidate went on to post a video to social media after the story broke. Take a listen.
Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false, regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict. We are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward for the state that I love, the people that I love, the movement I belong to, and the goal of defeating Susan Collins.
He also acknowledged what he called the political reality surrounding the accusation read, which I find notable. He's saying it's time to reflect on the best path forward. He didn't say he's dropping out there, but he's also stopped short of saying he's going to stay in the race, and which in turn fueled speculation because Maine law gives Democrats only until next Monday, July 13th, for Plattner to withdraw if they want to replace him on the general election ballot to face incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins, who's running for a sixth term.
And the hope, of course, by Democrats is to regain Congress and flip the balance of power in Congress. And this is a really crucial race. So what's the status of the race now? Let's play this out. Say Plattner pulls out of the race. What happens next?
Well, look, I mean, right after the news first broke, top Democrats, including Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, concluded the situation in Maine had fundamentally changed, that the situation had changed there. Even early backers like progressive Congressman Ro Khanna, who campaigned with them last month, and Senators Martin Heinrich and Elizabeth Warren, who were close to Plattner, had dropped their support. And now, as you mentioned, Senator Bernie Sanders, a top backer, weighed in and said that he has spoken with Plattner about the best path forward for Maine in light of these very serious allegations, and he has recommended that he step aside. Also notable, Reed, that New York City Mayor Mamdani also said today that Plattner should lead the race. Many Democrats I spoke to believe that the writing's on the wall here, and it's a long list of Democrats from establishment to the progressive wing who essentially no longer believe the progressive populist candidate can beat Susan Collins, who is running, who was once considered one of the most vulnerable Republicans this cycle. And again, if Plattner withdraws by the state's July 13th deadline, Maine Democrats can choose a replacement nominee through the party process rather than holding another vote. Voters would not be involved. They have up until July 27th to make that replacement. Then that replacement, of course, would then face Collins in November. And remember, as you mentioned, why does this seat matter so much? Why does Maine matter so much? It's because Democrats view Maine as one of their best pickup opportunities, Reed, as they try to regain control of the Senate. Maine is a must-win for them. And there's some new developing news. According to the Bangor Daily News, former Maine Senate President Troy Jackson, a progressive, has filed with the FEC on today to form a Senate Exploratory Committee, becoming the first Democrat to formally campaign for that spot, according to the paper, if Plattner appears to, if he vacates his nomination.
And has a clock to beat to do that. CBS News political director Finn Gomez. This is yet another one to watch. Glad you've got your glasses on, Finn. Thank you so much.
President Trump is in Turkey right now. He said this morning he will.
Oh, yeah. All right. Now let's get to Benjamin Netanyahu, the true president of the United States of America. Plattner can now run and win the pedophilic elite with Trump's camp. Plattner isn't Fetterman, but he's fucking the Democrats just the same. I know. Yeah, the Plattner is John Fetterman conversation. I didn't really agree with, because John Fetterman is not John Fetterman pre-stroke. Okay. Like, I don't know why people always try to like tie this stuff together, and I think people will obviously continue doing that. Like, I've seen some people say, "Oh, you were wrong on Fetterman. You're wrong on Graham Plattner." Like, I've acknowledged that the red flags with John Fetterman, I thought, were just him trying to avoid the money cannon from AIPAC. I have mentioned that because I knew that he was like shaky on Israel, but a lot of people, myself included, made the assessment that he's probably just trying to not get attacked nonstop. You know? But as far as John Fetterman goes, like, John Fetterman literally has gone back on fundamental planks of his policy platform that pertain to his personal existence. Undocumented migration, for example. His wife is an undocumented immigrant. His wife was an undocumented immigrant. He was very pro-immigrant. John Fetterman post-stroke is literally pro-ICE. The idea that, bro, he said he changed and opposes rape now, why don't we just forgive him? I like that. I know what you're trying to do here. I know what you're trying to say here, right? Like, I think redemption, even for someone like that, is possible. It's just that he has done nothing of the sort. Okay? He's done nothing of the sort. And I know you're going to turn around and say, well, what has he done for redemption in terms of American militarism or whatever? He's talked about his experience and how stupid all of it was, and how it was for nothing. He's denying it. Like, I don't know why people always fucking make it seem like Graham Plattner was running around and being like, I loved the experience. I know that he has said something similar in his Reddit posts from many years ago, but when he was running a campaign, he wasn't like, I loved waging war. It was the most exciting and the best thing. I want to send more people to go and fucking murder people overseas. Like that wasn't his output at all. As a matter of fact, if that was his output, I think people would probably be a little grossed out by it. You know? I mean, yes, he did low. No, he didn't. No, he did not. He did not. He said he joined for adventure, and after his buddies died, and you can also get mad about that too. You can be like, well, he only cared about it when, he personally experienced the death and destruction, and that's selfish, and I agree with you. Okay? And you can talk about the inconsistency between saying like, oh, I really didn't like this experience, but then I fucking joined Blackwater in 2018, which is true, right? That's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous claim. It's an inconsistency that I wanted to personally address. His campaign did not want to do this interview. But the idea that he was running actively on how awesome, like you're making it seem like it was hoorah. The Iraq War was great. Nothing to reflect on. It's awesome, and everyone should do it. It's just like, yeah, he had a lot of red flags. Part of the reason why I pointed out the red flags, but did not say that it was completely irredeemable up until now, I've made it very clear, is because of the electability, the electioneering, the unfortunate chess piece that he was in the Senate majority, including the way he communicated on the issue of Israel, on Medicare for all, and numerous other very good policies, which, for the record, are unbelievably popular in Maine, as we found out. And I told you guys at the time, I think my worst assessment. Wait, you're still defending him? Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yo, Hassan, this done so fucked. This is just so fucked. What can you even say at this point? I don't know what I can say to you that will help you comprehend that I've literally out of the gates said that he needs to drop out. There is no defending. You fucking, what do you want? What do you want? There's no defending Graham Plattner. I'm not defending Graham Plattner. Okay? I don't know how else I can explain this like simple concepts to you guys about populist policies are what actually carried him to victory in the primary. He was a very good communicator from the perspective of Mainers, which is what led him to win the primary with a resounding level of success against the candidate that the establishment put together. Okay? A guy with a Nazi tattoo was capable of getting Mainers to vote for him against the establishment aggressively pursuing everything that he did, which turns out was filled to the brim with fucking landmines beyond the red flags. Question, do you think you have to change anything in the future? I think I'll probably extend the arm's length beyond even like coming across as I'm defending certain people that I'm scrutinizing in the future for candidates, because I just don't want the fucking endless back and forth that's taking place right now. Like I literally should have just stuck to just this and never spoke about it beyond this. Because my initial analysis and my initial scrutiny and my initial assessment is correct. I said, seeing a lot of libs defend Plattner over the establishment pick Janet Mills because he has a leftist platform, and it seems like they're tired of the status quo electability arguments of the Dems. Now imagine if you had a candidate who didn't have a Blackwater CV and a totem cough. When I smell something wrong, I should just continuously keep that distance. Because there are a lot of people who will come in here. There are a lot of people who will come in here in the process and make like ridiculous arguments, ridiculous comparisons, and I immediately eat the bait, and I immediately eat the bait and start fucking arguing against the bad argument that someone is presenting. And then that gets clipped as like, or that turns into, you have hours and hours of defending Graham Plattner. That's it. Just coming from another autistic person, I truly think part of the reason people get mad at you about this is an autistic tone thing. Perfectly, I understand 100% your perspective about this, including when you're arguing about hypotheticals and making broader arguments using Plattner as an example. But I think it's not coming across to everyone. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? People would have been bugging you literally every day to talk about Plattner if you'd maintained distance. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I still obviously control what we talk about here, and I do fall for the, I do fall into getting into these arguments over and over again.
Consider selling F-35 fighter jets to Turkey, which is a reversal of a ban he put in place. You said yesterday that would, quote, upset the power balance in the Middle East. Have you made that clear to President Trump?
Yes, I have actually spoke to him several times about it. And I think that everybody understands that notwithstanding the personal friendship that President Trump has with Erdogan, it doesn't make Turkey a friendly or a friendly state to the United States. To the contrary.
Like, Benjamin Netanyahu is not on Fox News, but on Dana Bash, CNN, ZNN. Okay? And what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing on ZNN is directing American foreign policy, and specifically American foreign policy that pertains to NATO, while addressing a NATO country that's currently holding the NATO talks as a direct adversary to their interests. Think about how insane this is. Think about how fucking insane this is. Like, this is not weird. This is not a weird situation at all. We got a foreign country that's dictating American foreign policy on the liberal network, the supposedly liberal network, CNN. And this foreign country that is supposedly a sovereign nation that relies on us and our tax dollars and our political cover to do the violent things that it's doing with no scrutiny whatsoever, gets to now dictate American foreign policy around an American ally that is a part of an American security partnership, which I don't like, for the record, just so you guys understand my position on this versus my analysis. I know a lot of people mistake the two sometimes, okay? He's saying a country with American nukes that is hosting the American NATO conference right now is bad, and America should reconsider giving that country F-35 fighter jets. What is this? This was your brief mention in the Politico video?
Line Plattner should drop out of the race. I'm withdrawing my endorsement. Hasan Piker, the very well-known Twitch streamer, described it as curtains for Plattner's candidacy. And looking, I think, specifically at your corroborative work, said, you know, I believe this allegation based on the work that you do. It feels like at the time of recording this, there's really no way back for Graham Plattner's campaign here.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. All right, anyway. Once again, Hassan is talking about the most moral nation in such a negative way. Yes. Yes, it's fucked up. It's fucked up, I know. This is the most moral nation. There's no other way to do it.
It's a regime that's infected with the Muslim Brotherhood, which hates the United States. He harbors Hamas, the Hamas terrorists. He supports them. He finances them. He's thrown his opponents in jail, all of them. He throws more journalists in jail than anyone can understand. So he's not exactly a model ally of the United States. But even worse than that, he threatens Greece, a NATO ally. He occupies half of Cyprus, another NATO country. And the most important thing, and I put it right on the table, he threatens to destroy my country, the one and only Jewish state, is number two.
Yeah. Can you believe it, Dana? Can you believe it? The country that currently maintains an oil and gas pipeline that is responsible for 80% of my country, Israel's energy needs, actually wants to destroy Israel. Can you imagine, Dana? The horror. First of all, if that was the fucking case, he could just literally tweak the faucet, okay? He could just go burp, 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 and shut off the oil and gas pipeline from Azerbaijan to Israel. Okay? What the fuck is this guy talking about? If Erdogan was Erdo Goat, okay, if he was a real one, that's what he would do.
Says that we have no place among the nations, and you know what that means. And his number three, the interior minister, says that he's looking forward to be the governor of Jerusalem. Hello?
But,
you know,
but
we're
Prime
a sovereign
Minister,
country.
Yeah, but
we've
Prime
been
Minister, the
independent,
president said this morning
and we tend to stay independent.
President said this morning that they are.
Does Israel want to be in NATO? Fuck no. That would require them to even give troop assurances to any other country. And Israel is not doing that. Okay? Are you fucking kidding me? Pff, Israel joining NATO. Great. Yeah, Israel trying to act like it's more of a NATO than a founding NATO member? Yes. Israel is more NATO now than America. Okay?
Great friends, and not just the two of them, the countries of the United States and Turkey, and that Turkey is perhaps a better ally than other so-called allies. So he is considering giving the country these planes, F-35s.
Well, as I said, it would destroy the power balance in the Middle East because Turkey, I think, has aggressive aspirations. I mean, they openly say that. They want to restore.
Wait, you don't say. You don't say. Turkey has aggressive aspirations in the Middle East. Dude, literally any other country leader says this, and there is a valid point, okay? Any other country. Fuck it. Iran says this, and I'm like, okay, not wrong. Israel is the one country that doesn't get to make that argument. Okay? You are the one country that does not get to make this argument. Oh, Turkey is far too belligerent and far too aggressive in its aspirations in the Middle East. That's incredible, dude.
The Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire not only included Turkey, it included many other countries, included Syria, it included pieces of Jordan, included all of present-day Israel, included some...
Yeah, Palestine. Say it. That's what it was called. It was called Palestine, motherfucker.
Gulf countries. So this is not a force for peace and stability. And if you give... this kind of radical regime that admittedly smiles to America when it is necessary, or smiles to the president of the United States when it's necessary. When you give him that power, you're going to see aggression in its wake. I wouldn't do that.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, the conversation that the president is having with Turkey today is just the latest in moves that he has made that are not making you happy. He obviously imposed ceasefires in Gaza, in Lebanon, on Iran. He made you turn fighters back from attacking Iran last summer. He's told you what you can and can't do in Hezbollah.
You know how I sometimes say, like, American neo-Nazis that are anti-Semitic and present themselves as anti-Israel kind of come across as jealous? It's like projection where they're like, oh, why do Jews get to do this? Like, why do they get to have an ethno-state? Like, why can't we have a fascist white Christian ethno-state here in the United States of America? Like, that's what it comes across as when Benjamin Netanyahu goes on CNN and is like, Turkey is a very dangerous force, a very belligerent force in the region, unlike me, unlike Israel. And it's like, and Turkey does present a destabilizing factor at the behest of American investment and at the behest of American interest in the region, as it's, done time and time again. However, Turkey also has its own regional ambitions, right? Erdogan, one of his only qualities that even his critics will at least recognize as sound, because they also have they also operate out of a nationalistic framework. That is the fact that he has maneuvered around the regional ambitions of Turkey and has been able to utilize the leverage that it gains against Europe over and over again, the leverage that it has with the United States of America over and over again. The problem from the Israeli perspective here is that is making Turkey an irreplaceable force in the region, and Israel doesn't like that. Israel doesn't like the competition that Turkey represents for America. The difference between Israel and Turkey, however, is that Turkey has the second largest, Turkey, one, has a massive defense industry, and that massive defense industry has actually played a major role in Ukraine, for example, with the Bayraktar drones. But then besides that, Turkey also has the second largest standing military in NATO. And Turkey deploys that standing military. Turkey also trains other troops as well, on top of deploying that military both in the region and potentially anywhere around the world. Israel doesn't have that. Israel does not have that ambition. Israel will never put Israeli troops in the line of fire if it's not something that is related to the greater Israel project. This is what makes Turkey a client state that is technically more valuable than Israel, which is precisely the reason why Benjamin Netanyahu is chirping here. Okay?
Who is calling the shots for Israel?
I think there's a wide misperception of everything you said, because a lot of these things, some of them were not true, and some of them were agreed in advance. And some of it, yes, we had occasional disagreements. Look, he is the president of the United States. He does what is good for the United States. I'm the prime minister of Israel. I do what is important for what is good for Israel. And most of the time, these things are identical. I have to commend the president. He brought a huge American force to counter our common enemy, which is Iran, that chants death to Israel, death to America. Had they developed nuclear weapons, if we hadn't acted, they would have them already. They would eventually use them against America, not only against Israel. So on the big things, we see eye to eye, and occasionally we don't, but we're true allies. They call us, the National Security Council issued a memorandum a few months ago. They called Israel the model ally. And I can tell you...
Oh. Okay, never mind then. My mistake. My mistake, Big Yahoo. Okay, then if they said so... Shit, my bad, bro. Oh, this entire time I was thinking all Israel does is take, and then fucking draw America into conflicts that, they're obviously not totally against, right? But have devastating outcomes for Americans and the region and, broadly the rest of the world. This energy crisis that took place directed by, Israel's own personal investment in destroying and destabilizing Iran, a nation with thousands of years of culture and history and 93 million people. All of that, my mistake. I thought all of that was actually at odds with any sort of greater American project. It turns out I was wrong because, they said it, the National Security Council issued a memorandum. The National Security Council issued a memorandum, Dana. Don't you understand? The National Security Council issued a memorandum that said Israel number one. Fuck. Yeah, you would be dead wrong. Never think that again. Exactly. It's cool though. It's cool. It's wonderful. I love to see the truth get mentioned on CNN. Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Thank you for clarifying.
A memorandum a few...
my mom said I'm the most handsomest boy.
Months ago, they called Israel the model ally. And I can tell you that
True.
Even allies can have their differences, but I think America has no greater ally in the world than Israel, and Israel has no greater ally than the United States. Yeah. And I say that with complete recognition of the fact that we sometimes see things a bit differently. It's natural. You're a big country, you're far away. We're a small country, beleaguered and close to these regimes that want to destroy us.
I want to talk specifically about Iran for a moment, sir. President Trump said the memorandum of understanding with Iran is probably an unconditional.
There's something really funny about Benjamin Netanyahu's two competing interests every time he does a non-contentious interview like this one that might offer slight criticism coming from the base, Americans broadly, or maybe even at times like J.D. Vance, right? On the one hand, he has to sit there and be the reliable puppy, right? The attack dog turned into a puppy because he's on American television. He has to present himself a certain way. But also on the other hand, he is chock full of supremacist values. And therefore, he wants to say what he truly thinks, which is, how dare you ask me such a fucking question? I am the most important figure in American politics. Israel is the most important country on the planet. And you kind of see the cogs turning in his head whenever they ask him a question where, like, they'll be like, so what do you think about J.D. Vance saying that the rest of the world has actually dropped their support for Israel? And he has to just sit there and be like, well, India supports us. What do you have to say to that? India's a big country.
Surrender, but the specific question is, under this MOU, the United States terminates all types of sanctions against Iran. Is this a failure for your country, for Israel?
Look, I think it's too early to say what will happen. The president believes that he can stop Iran's nuclear program, which is a nuclear program to create atomic bombs. He believes that he can do this through negotiations.
Do you?
And various pressures. Look, I have my doubts, but I think he should be given the chance, and he's, trying to achieve that.
It's funny to see him like being forced into the cuck chair, even for a little bit, even if it's like symbolic, even if this is beneficial for him, right? Because look, I don't think that these guys are interviewing him and making him sit on the cuck chair because they genuinely think it's his time to sit on the cuck chair because he deserves it. I think it's more so it looks better for the American audience if he just kind of sits there and takes a bruising, right? Like, I think that's the highest priority here. This is a part of the propaganda machine that's still trying to launder Israel's reputation. It's a face-saving operation, right? This is not an about-face. This is a face-saving operation. And it's very, very funny that even then he can't do the fucking damage control theatrics necessary. He can't sit there like a good boy and be like, you're right. Trump is the guy. He's right.
It remains to be seen. But I have said, and by the way, I think President Trump has said too, that deal or no deal, I certainly will not let Iran have nuclear weapons. And that is also the president's position.
In 2015, I was there. I remember that you came to the U.S. and spoke to Congress over the objection of President Obama because of your opposition to that Iran deal, the JCPOA. You specifically mentioned the deal's sanction relief in that speech. What's different about now?
I think Iran, look, our combined action, the U.S. and Israeli action today destroyed, I think the lowest estimates are $400 billion of the regime's infrastructure. And some say as much as $750 billion or even $1 trillion. So I think what is being discussed now are very small numbers. Admittedly, any number is a high number as far as countries like Israel and others see it. But it's not going to allow Iran to reestablish itself. The question remains, at the end of the negotiations, if there's a deal struck, then you have to see, does the deal actually meet the main goals? The most important one being ending Iran's nuclear program, taking out the enriched material, dismantling the enrichment sites. And there are other things that have to do with proxy warfare and ballistic missiles. If it achieves that, then yes, Iran will get sanctions relief, and that would help the regime resuscitate itself. But I don't see that happening yet. And I hope that the president will do exactly as he promised to do, to make sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapons program.
The issue of supporting Israel as a Jewish state and just U.S. support for Israel overall, they have become a central issue in American politics, really a litmus test right now in Democratic primaries here in the U.S. I want you to listen to how the mayor of New York City responded when he was asked if he supports Israel as a Jewish state.
I've said time and again that I support.
Oh, shit. Oh, brother. Well, I guess it's important to ask the real president about the only country that matters. The perspective of the fake and phony mayor of New York City. Who gives a shit? You know, you got to hear Big Yahoo's take on this, right? I mean, come on now. You got to hear what Big Yahoo has to say about, ew, Zoran. I can't wait to see what his face looks like.
The state of Israel is a state with equal rights, I believe.
Yeah, they're ratting out a fellow American. This is true. No, literally. Dana's like, Big Yahoo, get in here. I hate this guy. What do you think about him? Look at how anti-Semitic he truly is. Get in there, Big Yahoo.
That any state that preferences...
But as a Jewish state is the question.
I think any state that privileges one religion over the other is one that I can't tell you I support, whether it be Israel or Saudi Arabia or anywhere else. And a lot of that comes back to a fundamental belief that we should all be considered equal. No.
Okay, let's see here. I'm gonna tell you what he's gonna say. Oh, we don't privilege Jewish people over the 2 million Palestinian, or no, he won't say Palestinians. 2 million Arabs. Pejorative. Okay. And that, what about the 50 Muslim supremacist states that exist right now, except for little old Israel? Israel is a small nation, a tiny nation. Israel has an Arab, pejorative, on the Supreme Court.
No matter what our faith is.
Your response?
Well, he conveniently forgets that the only democracy in the Middle East is Israel.
Damn it, I forgot the only democracy in the Middle East. How could I have forgotten? How could I have forgotten the most important? The most important. I said tiny nation, but I forgot. I forgot the most important democracy.
20% of our citizens are, in fact, Muslims. They're not Arabs, but they sit on the Supreme Court. They're in the Knesset, our parliament. They share every walk of life. That's the only place in the Middle East where you actually have this this equality that he's talking about. But he has supported, or his supporters have supported Hamas, these people who murder people, who beheaded our men, who raped our women, and then murdered them, burned babies alive, and so on. He said, the river to the sea, he supports them. This is not mere cynicism. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absurd. There are...
Wait, is he saying... Uh-oh. He's saying Zohran Mamdani is Hamas. Uh-oh. Oh, brother. Big Yahoo's flustered right now. I mean, he is pissed. Yeah, you would think that any reputable journalist would be embarrassed to give this man airtime to blatantly lie to their audience, but I guess Dana Bash on CNN is okay with it. Yes, I'm going to be tuning into the Abdul Stevens debate, yes.
Are always imperfect democracies. Israel is an imperfect democracy. The United States is an imperfect democracy. Why? Because we live in the real world. But it's 100 times better than these dictatorships and these horrible tyrannies that...
Dana, don't you understand? We democratically decided to do genocide to the Palestinians. Puh. These Arabs, they don't know how to do democracy. We are taming, we are civilizing the barbarians, Dana.
Mamdani and his supporters support. So yeah,
Let me
I stand
ask you
completely
beyond
with the
Mamdani.
Jewish state, the democratic Jewish state that fights for its life, but we also protect so many...
Notice how he didn't... Okay, to be fair, he did say like, oh, Supreme Court Arab, so many Arabs, Muslims, disgusting, live in Israel. We let them live there for now. But he didn't even address the whole like Jewish state that privileges Jews a Jewish ethno state.
Others, by fighting these barbarians, will have no qualms whatsoever to murdering their own people and trying to terrorize
Sir,
everyone else.
some American Jews in Congress who support Israel and support what you just said say that a lot of the actions by you and your government are making Jews in the United States unsafe. Congresswoman Haley Stevens, she's running for Senate in Michigan, said Benjamin Netanyahu has made us less safe. He has frankly put Jews in an uncomfortable position across the country. Have you?
Well, it's made her uncomfortable because she can't stand up for the truth. She's trying to probably excuse anti-Semitism. You know,
Haley Stevens is, one, not Jewish. Two, what gives? What gives? Bro, Haley Stevens is Hamas. Dude, look, I'm of two different minds here. On the one hand, I think this is a way to try to boost maybe Stevens' credibility as like an Israel critic in a race that I know they are paying close attention to. The idea that Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't know the like maiden name of Abdul's parents and the name of the dog that Abdul had when he was in 5th grade is ridiculous. He knows all of that shit, okay? The level of involvement that Israel has in American elections, especially one that is as pivotal, where there will be an Israel critic going to Senate, okay? They know everything. So on the one hand, I do feel like he's just maybe attacking her so that, because they know their unpopularity, so they can give like a little bit more credibility to Haley Stevens as a critic of Israel that's being supported by AIPAC for some reason. But the other reason why I feel like he just knocked this out of the chamber, okay, is because any sort of criticism that Benjamin Netanyahu hears from American Congress, whether it be a Democrat or a Republican, immediately has one speed. Okay? I think it could be one or the other. I think it could be either. And I'm kind of leaning on the side of the latter rather than the former. He might have just heard someone who has famously said, Israel comes to me in my dreams, and immediately go, how dare she criticize Israel? How dare she? How dare she criticize the greatest nation on the earth? How dare she? She is Hamas. She is Hamas. We will do away with all of our critics on American soil.
She's not. She's, I mean, I just want to explain. She's somebody who supports Israel. She supports funding Israel, which is diminishing big time among Democrats and even some Republicans in the United States Congress.
Well, let me.
By the way, there you have it. I mean, this literally is the reason why Israel is cratering in popularity in America, amongst Americans, even Americans that will say that they like Israel, that they want Israel to you know, one day be a peaceful nation or whatever, right? Like, this is it. This is the reason. Because he straight up hears someone who is like an ultra Zionist and hears that like Netanyahu is making things harder to defend Israel and to defend unconditional aid to Israel. And his response is, she must be Hamas. She must be Hamas. Who's funding her? Qatar? Qatar is funding her. It's Hamas. It's like, no, sir, you're funding her. Actually, you're funding her campaign to the tune of $34 billion. AIPAC has done that. Hamas. AIPAC is Hamas. Like, the minuscule, tiny, marginal, like unbelievably small criticism of Benjamin Netanyahu is met with this kind of friendly fire. What gives? Matty Maroon is Trump's biggest donor. Benjamin Netanyahu is Trump's biggest donor. What gives?
Tell you, we track.
War is back on. It's on. Focus on real shit. Dog, shut the fuck up. The president is talking, okay? I know. We're going to get to that, okay? Calm the fuck down. You can bust your situation monitoring nut in a little bit, okay? Wait like 5 fucking minutes.
Support, and I'm obviously concerned when people raise that. And I've looked at the support, and I'm obviously concerned when people raise that. And I've looked at the Gallup polls, okay, and they're very interesting, and other polls. And you see the decline in support for Israel, okay? And it's several years before.
Here's another poll. Hamas's investment in TikTok. Hamas and Qatar are investing in TikTok to make Americans support anti-Semitism.
The Gaza war took place, okay? And you ask, why did that happen? Well, the one correlation you see, which is almost a perfect correlation, is the penetration of TikTok and other social media in the United States. And as the penetration increases, the support for Israel decreases. And let me tell you something else. The support for America decreases. The number of people who say they're not proud to be American is just correlation. So
Right.
I think that what has happened here is that there are several countries and organizations that have penetrated the social media, have abused them by putting in bot farms and other things to
Stop giving the president no's. I just know my president, man. I know my big Yahoo, my big beautiful president, the real president. Okay, I know him. I know what he's gonna say before he says it. Okay. Call me the doctorate of Hosborough. What the fuck? Oh, there it is. I got a doctorate in Hosborough.
Especially directed at young
Remember when I said I got a doctorate in racism? A PhD in racism? What do you think? What do you think the specialty was? What's racist? What's more racist than fucking Zionist Hosborough?
To
All right, we got another hype train. We failed to carry the flame earlier today. Maybe we'll be able to carry the flame right now. We're at level 1 hype train. Gift subs. Support independent media. Piker Broadcasting Services sponsored by you, the people, for you, the people. No ads. No thrills. Piker Broadcasting News for tomorrow's news today. Jaeger 08 Larson, thank you for the 521 gift
only
subs.
I got to pee. To hate Israel, but also to hate America. And you know what? Those who say they hate Israel usually end up hating America.
Mr.
They
Prime
burn our
Minister, I think
flags,
all
they
things
burn
can be
your flag
true.
as well.
All things can be true. What you're saying about bots and about the internet, no question. But are you saying that Israel and you personally bear no responsibility? Let's just talk about Gaza for 1 minute. Currently, Hamas is continuing to refuse to disarm. The IDF is also carrying out nearly daily airstrikes in Gaza. You've taken over more territory there. And the Palestinian people are continuing to suffer, still displaced, dealing with intense heat, limited care, limited resources. Will you do more to help those suffering in Gaza? And will you concede that the images that people are seeing on their phones as part of social media is very much contributing to the turnaround and the diminishment of support of your state of Israel and of you?
Yeah, look, I think that the what you're raising is how do you fight a war in the digital age when when you have terrorists that embed themselves in civilian populations, in schools, in civilian neighborhoods, in apartment blocks, in mosques, and so on. How do you fight them? They send rockets to indiscriminately kill our people, and they hide behind, they're targeting our civilians while hiding behind their own civilians. So what are you going to do? What do you think would happen if this happened to New York City, say from New Jersey? You think if they rocketed you with, with this firepower and murdered about 10,000 of your people, murdered, raped, maimed, disemboweled, 10,000 Americans. What do you think the response of the United States would be?
Let me ask you about
right now. It would be a lot stronger.
It's just so funny that he's debate lording someone who has the exact same identical point of view. Okay? Like, I know Dana is like offering light pushback here, but let's be real. Like, that is straight up her personal. Michael Fusco art with the 50 bones. Oh, my Lord. Go back, CNN folded.
the 1 minute. You say bots and all
They
things
burn
can
the hate
be
flag
true.
as well.
All things can be true.
I gotta see this. I gotta see this pushback. By the way, this did happen. It's called 9/11. And what we did after 9/11 was insane. And as a matter of fact, many people now recognize how fucked up it was. A lot of them don't recognize how fucked up it was to the region, right? But they, at the very least, they recognize how much of a waste it was, how many lives in America were wasted. And plenty of people also obviously recognize how devastating it was to the lives that were slain in Iraq and Afghanistan. But people even recognize like the surveillance state that it designed in the United States of America. That's how Trump won the election the first time. He literally was like, Iraq was a mistake. We should have never gone into Iraq. That's why Hillary Clinton should lose. And she did. She did. So the idea of like, what would you do? What would you do if thousands of Americans were killed? Like, we're living in it, big dog. This shit sucks. Okay, level 5 hype train, 3 minutes remaining, ladies and gentlemen.
Saying about bots and about the internet, no question. But are you saying
It's just so funny because, again, Dana agrees with him. It is bots, right? Paladiate, thank you for the 20 gifted subs.
that Israel and you personally bear no responsibility? Let's just talk about Gaza for 1 minute. Currently, Hamas is continuing to refuse to disarm. The IDF is also carrying out nearly daily airstrikes in Gaza. You've taken over more territory there. And the Palestinian people are continuing to suffer, still displaced, dealing with intense heat,
Level
limited
6 hype
care,
train,
limited
Science Tippy,
resources.
thank you for the 5.
Will you do more to help those?
Mate, feed, art. With the 50 bones, god damn. I'll give you a new song to stem over today. If we carry the flame, level 6 hype train complete, only 3 levels remaining in the hype train. Level 7 hype train at 19%, 4 minutes remaining. We'll carry the flame with a new one today. Okay? Again, like I said, it's straight up everything. Everything that Benjamin Netanyahu is saying, Dana Bash agrees with, right? She agrees with it. And even then, she's like, but don't you think that you're drawing a lot of fucking aggro here for your actions and the way you carry yourself? And he's like, no.
Suffering in Gaza, and will you concede that the images that people are seeing on their phones as part of social media is very much contributing to the turnaround and the diminishment of support of your state of Israel and of you?
Yeah, look, I think that the what you're raising is
Level
how do you fight
50
a war
hype train, level
in
7.
the digital age when
Mythical moderate.
when you have terrorists that embed themselves in civilian populations, in schools, in civilian neighborhoods, in apartment blocks, in mosques, and so on. How do you fight them? They send rockets to indiscriminately kill our people, and they hide behind their
Yeah, and then we heard this already. I already explained it.
of Europe. The response of the
But let
United
me
States
ask you
would be-
about
it
right
would
now.
be a lot stronger than ours.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to say right now, but I think
Go
it's
ahead.
important. I think it's important. We have taken unbelievable measures in order to avoid civilian casualties. You know, we send millions of phone calls to the people, millions of text messages, and so on. Please leave this neighborhood because we're going to
But, sir,
try
there's
to
supposed to
eradicate
be a
Hamas.
ceasefire
And
right now.
Hamas. No, I'm
Like, you can't even follow through. Oh, God. It's just like, okay, this is Dana Bash saying these things is a sign that the times have shifted dramatically. Okay. A great way to break Chatter's parent Zionist brain rot. Simply ask what other prime ministers of another whole ass foreign country gets this much screen time in mainstream media. Yeah. Yeah, like if Iran deployed flyers in Tel Aviv, would it be okay if they fucking reduced it to rubble? Of course not. No one. Would it be okay? Would it be okay if Osama bin Laden was like, oh yeah, we're gonna strike on 9/11, we're gonna strike the World Trade Center? Would that make it any better? No, of course not. It's fucking ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. Level 7 hype train. 1 minute and 46 seconds remaining. Support independent media by subscribing to the Piker Broadcasting Service. Ladies and gentlemen, the People's Broadcasting Service, PBS, is sponsored by you, the people, for you, the people. Piker Broadcasting Service for tomorrow's news today. Yes, we're going to talk about the U.S. strikes on Iran. I know. While this conversation is taking place, America is already prioritizing or at least advancing the interests of Israel by continuing the war rather than trying to find a manageable conclusion in the memorandum of understanding that they're supposed to be abiding by. Okay, so, no matter what Bibi says, no matter what Big Yahoo says on this broadcast, Israel's needs are still being met somehow. Win or lose, Israel is still on top. Operation Epstein's fury seemingly has unpaused. Yeah. However bad you think political discourse is on here, TikTok makes it look like the Federalist Papers. Yes. Don't drop out. Highly suspicious that this was dropped right after the other candidate dropped out of the race. Not even confirmed that you guys want him to drop out. Sue her for defamation. This is why I was saying, normies are on a fucking different wavelength, okay? Normies are on a different wavelength. How did this man develop this much popular approval and support? Because he's liberal Trump. How did Trump develop this level of cult-like fandom around himself? Because he saw what the people were demanding and he said he would fight for it. Okay? That's important to identify so that the next time there isn't a guy who fucking has rape allegations is running for that position or any position, really. That's it. That is the level of anger and resentment people have towards the establishment Democrats, towards, pro-Israel politicians. That's the level of scrutiny they have. This is the liberal version. This is the liberal version of Israel assassinated Charlie Kirk. Okay? It's the secret sauce. It is straight up the fucking secret sauce. I'm telling you right now. And those who don't see how much the environment has shifted underneath their feet will always lose. There will be more situations, there will be more instances. There'll be a lot more instances where they end up getting caught off guard. Also, it is a superpower to be a white guy, to look like a chud too, like a chuddy white guy. Holy fuck, dude.
Talking about, I'll ceasefire talk about in a minute. Well, obviously there's no real fighting going on. There are occasional actions that they try.
Hype train level 8, only 67%. Hype train level 8 in order to carry the flame. Blonde Bob, thank you for the 50 bones. Level 9 hype train. We're at level 9 hype train. Only one level remaining to carry the motherfucking flame. Level 8 complete. Level 9 hype train at 11%.
Try to do against us and we do against them, but it's not the kind of broad warfare that we had before. Everybody understands that. But I still come back to this point, Dana, and I insist on it because people say, Israel, how dare you? How come civilians are killed? Because Hamas did not let the civilians leave. And when they try to leave...
Mate feed art with another 50 bones. We're at 53% at level 9 hype train. I love that you basically don't listen to any music except Carry the Flame, because I carry the flame. A lot of you don't. Okay? A lot of you can't. A lot of you don't. It's just the reality. Okay? Carrying the flame isn't just about embodying the values of the late and great Kirk, which is, freedom of speech and things of that nature. But it's also about listening to one song and one song only. And that song happens to be We Are Charlie Kirk. Okay? That's it. That's the reality. Okay, sorry. Oops. I accidentally almost carried the flame. Only the woke can stoke the flames. Yes. Michael Fusco art with 100 bones. And that's it. There goes it. Remake this song just for you. Who's actually asking for these? This is like the 5th version I've heard, and I feel like you are the only audience at this point. First of all, my friend, that's not true. Okay, there's an emo version as well that I accidentally clicked on here, but this has 500,000 views from 6 months ago. Okay, people, I assume people throw this on at parties, right? Like they have to, especially because it goes fucking hard. It actually goes super hard. I think it goes crazy hard.
At our behest, they would shoot them. They would actually kill their own people in order to keep them in a place where they would be injured by us. So when you have this cynicism and this horror, you don't support the terrorists. You support Israel because you will end up being in the same place exactly. We're not fighting just our battle. We're fighting your battle, both against Iran and its proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. These people are bent on destroying our free societies.
Will the ceasefire take hold and be successful?
Using the media for that end. Well, look, it depends. Every time they try to kill our people, make a move on our people, obviously we act. But I think that the most
Abdul Sayed, Haley Stevens debate is going to happen in an hour.
Important thing is the disarmament factor in the agreement, the 20-point agreement that President Trump put forward. And the most important one is that Hamas has to disarm and Gaza has to be demilitarized. You know, it's going to happen one way or the other. I prefer that it would happen without the need for the use of force and the need for our use of force, because Donna, I've been to war. You know, I served 5 years in a special unit. My brother died while saving hostages in Entebbe. I had an 18-year-old fellow soldier die in my arms. That's not something that you forget. And I saw the grief of my parents and the grief of so many others. So I would prefer if we could avoid the renewal of open combat. Yes, I would prefer that if we could achieve our aims of eliminating the Hamas threat from Gaza with other means, by all means.
I know we're almost out of time, but I really do want to ask one final question about what's going on the West Bank. Violent attacks by Israeli settlers against Palestinians. Over the weekend, Israeli settlers in the West Bank raided and set fire to a restaurant. We have some photos that we're showing. I know, and I've heard you say these are just thugs. But my question is, if they're just thugs, why won't or can't you stop them?
Well, we do actually. It's about 100. It's actually 150 or so. What you would call juvenile delinquents. They're not, by the way, from the settler community. They're overwhelmingly upstanding citizens. They serve in the army. They're law-abiding, and unfortunately, they're attacked by Palestinian terrorists on the roads. They massacre families. So there is. It's not that.
Dude, I'm sorry. That's fucking insane, man. That is so nasty. And I know for a fact. Here's the thing, okay? If there was ever an opportunity where Dana would interview someone like myself, an American citizen who has violated no laws, right? Who simply has a difference in opinion with Dana, she would be 1,000,000 times more critical in that interview, okay? Than the one that she's currently giving to a fucking out and about war criminal. That's what's so messed up about the standards in mainstream media, okay? Like he's over here talking about how like these children that we're putting in torturous concentration camps in a territory that we illegally occupy is perfectly valid. Saying all the settler violence is done by 150 juvenile delinquents who aren't even from the settlements is one of the stupidest defenses I've ever heard. That's the best you could come up with. Did the Hasbara budget run out? Yeah. Here's the thing. This is the answer that you give when you're not even expected to answer any questions. Okay? That's the problem. That's the problem. Like, he is annoyed that he has to even entertain a response, right? It's like, what do you mean you're asking me this fucking question? What kind of bullshit is this?
Community. It is actually 150 or so kids, teenagers usually, who are brought into.
But you're the Israeli government. You should be able to
I
stop
think-
them, particularly given how much of an impact this is having globally on seeing this happen in these images.
You're absolutely right that this is blown up beyond belief and causes a lot of damage. I think it's wrong on its own account. I don't want and don't accept vigilantism, and I don't care if it comes from Arabs or Jews. Our citizens cannot practice violence against anyone. If we have to apply force, it's the law and order, it's the police and the military that has to do that, and therefore we take actions among them. But it's precisely because it's such a tightly knit group that acts according to, they try to skirt the law. And when we bring them to the courts, our courts are very lenient. I don't know why, maybe because they're young. And I've said that we have to challenge that. And I will not, I don't accept it. But I want to put that in perspective. It's not the settler community, because the settler community condemns them. It's not the people.
Okay, dude. Okay, dude. Yeah, no, definitely. It's not the settlers. It's not the big, beautiful settlers. Not the settlers. I mean, this is... I like that we've moved the goalpost to, like, the settlers are good too, actually. It's just like a bunch of bad apples, but they're not even settlers, even though they're illegally occupying territory that does not belong to Israel. It's awesome.
People of Israel, because we condemn them. It's not the government of Israel. It's a, I would say, a violation of basic norms of our country. We don't accept it. I don't accept it.
Okay, and I do have to let you go, but you are committed, for example, to going after and bringing justice to and for the family of Palestinian American Save Musalet, who was beaten to death last year?
I'm not sure that I'll look into it, certainly, because you raised it, but I've tried.
Oh, because you raised it, Dana. I mean, we kill so many people. We beat them to death all the time, and I defend it all the time vociferously. So I didn't even realize that you knew the name of one.
To make sure that, look, every time you have this, you do it.
Him even calling that the settler community is interesting. Isn't it supposed to be Judea and Samaria to these guys? Settler implies the international crime aspect of it. Weird that he's conceding on that name. Yeah, I guess he's just like using that to the best of his ability as fast as possible. He's trying to be, he's just doing the thing where he's using that language on purpose.
Have real investigations. You know, Israel is a transparent country. You can't hide things. You can't hide crimes in the military. You cannot hide crimes in the police. It doesn't work that way. So whatever is the charge, we'll look at it.
Thank you.
And we'll take care of it because that's the kind of country we are. Despite the vilifications, unjust vilifications that are thrown at us left and right. We're a real democracy.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin
Here in the Middle
Netanyahu,
East.
thank you for your time. I very much appreciate it.
Is this damage control? He wants to get in front of Trump. That's why he's doing it. That's what this is. It's he's already signaled that he wants to get in Trump's ear again. And I guess that he's not getting the access that he wants from Trump right now. Because the American negotiation team is working on the MOU while still violating parts of the MOU, which we'll be talking about right now. So, like, the reason why he's doing all this is because I don't think he's trying to win the hearts and minds of Americans. He doesn't give a shit about that. He wants to win the hearts and minds of one American. And there are at least 7 refuelers active above the Strait of Hormuz. And explosions have been reported in southern Iran. As we were watching that TV interview, a second round of strikes reported in southern Iran 14 minutes ago. CENTCOM announced they've begun launching strikes against Iran. They finally were able to announce it before Barack Ravid, says Bonzer Berry. And Iran, I believe, was claiming that they hit cell towers this time. Not sure what that means, but yeah, with 2 appearances on Fox News and 1 on CNN within 48 hours, more and more it appears Netanyahu has no other avenues to get his message to Trump. Barack still gets the details, though. Of course he does. A U.S. official told me the targets included Iranian air defense systems, coastal surveillance systems, surface-to-air missiles, anti-ship cruise missiles, drone launch sites, and port facilities. So, the reason why this is happening, for those of you who don't know, is that a part of the memorandum of understanding on the Iranian side is that Iran still gets to control the navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. They don't, they're not going to impede on transit, but they still get to control it, right? So there are 2 pathways as it stands currently. Okay, there are 2 pathways that you can navigate through the Strait of Hormuz. Either the Omani coastline or the Iranian coastline. And Iran wants all ships to navigate through the Iranian coastline, right? America, on the other hand, for one reason or another, I don't know. I assume it's maybe to posture, maybe to show that they maintain control over the situation, have decided that ships that want to navigate through the Strait of Hormuz without any sort of Iranian control can go through the Omani coastline. This happened last week as well, if you recall, where Iran shot at 2 ships that were passing through the Omani coastline and not going through Qeshm Island. So that is the situation right now. It seems it's the same exact story. America tests the boundaries once again, tells ships to pass through the Omani coastline. Iran opens fire on those ships. And then America comes back and strikes Iran directly. My understanding is that Iran is breaking the MOU when it attacks ships that are trying to go through the route approved by Oman, and then the U.S. is breaking it by bombing. Just the same thing every week after markets close. Yeah, this is what happened. This is what happened last week as well. Speaking of rehashing old metas, Donald Trump is also talking about acquiring Greenland again, this time at the NATO summit. But no, I don't think it's a violation for Iran to, it's a violation for Iran to strike at any ships. But Iran is doing that because they want America to forcibly follow through on the memorandum of understanding, which I believe clearly dictates that the ships have to go through the Iranian coastline and not the Omani coastline. Okay? I can't believe you're this week. You will gaslight people into claiming you did not support Plattner and will continue. I never said I did not support Plattner in any way, shape, or form. I just said that I did not support Plattner in the same way that I supported actual candidates that I was in the tank for in the way that people are claiming I did. I simply stood by the position that Graham Plattner was a better candidate than, at the time, with the information that we knew at the time, that Graham Plattner was a better candidate than Janet Mills. I did not donate to Graham Plattner. I did not endorse Graham Plattner. I did not push for Graham Plattner. I did, however, push back against ridiculous complaints coming from some people. It's not the main topic at hand, and it feels like you just simply want to, argue with me rather than cover other things that are going on in the world, even though we covered the Graham Plattner situation for the last 3 hours. You are a subscriber or were a subscriber. If you subscribe, you can rewind. I don't think that you care about that, though. I think you just care about getting a clip so that you can plaster it all over your Discord, so that you can keep pumping it in the airwaves to make it seem like I'm the person who brought Graham Plattner to the main stage, hand-selected him. I'm the fight agency. I'm in Bernie's ear, begging him to endorse Graham Plattner. I was very excited about him, all this stuff, which is not the case. I was looking for cool tattoos online, cool Nazi tattoos online, and I landed on Graham Plattner when I was hand-selecting my favorite candidate. More strikes in the last 2 minutes. In Shiddick and Keshem ports, you platformed him to start with you, and your tweet claimed you did not promote him. So yeah, carry on gaslighting. You platformed him to start with. Dog, I need you guys to understand something really important. Okay. I'm a political commentator. Graham Plattner is running for Senate on a populist, or was running for Senate on a populist slant. Okay. He was the #1 talked about story for months on end. Of course, I'm going to cover it. But you defended the tattoo law. No, I didn't. As a matter of fact, I did not do that at all. I said it was a major fucking red flag when we first found out about it. Keep going. Oh my God, this is amazing. Okay, if your entertainment is simply having an argument with a Twitch streamer, then you have already positioned yourself as a deeply unserious person. You don't have any investment in anything, really. You just want to fucking, you just want to continue the drama. And it's not even just drama. You just want to continue the idea that like I am just a bad person, like a bad commentator, bad analyst, bad person in general, immoral, and everyone should hopefully understand that so they don't subscribe to this broader project. And that's what it is. I should stop getting one guide. That's what I should do. Did you defend his service in the U.S. military, as others claim? I have a broad standard across the board for veterans. I do not immediately and reflexively assume that a veteran is a rapacious, baby-killing monster. That's a consistent position. Farming off of sexual assault as though it's drama is gross. Brother, these communities also literally turned genocide into a drama farming operation. The crime of all crimes. So this is expected. This is not unexpected. 2 more Iranian attacks on ships in Hormuz overnight from the Middle Eastern correspondent for The Economist. Again, with the intent of forcing vessels to stop using the Omani route. One of the vessels under attack appears to be Al Rekayat, an LNG tanker owned and managed by Nakilat, the shipping arm of Qatar's LNG industry. Zachary Cohen on CNN says a U.S. official tells Zachary Cohen on CNN that the strikes are punishment and not proportional and won't be over for a bit. I would simply say this. I would urge people to reconsider who they are aligning with. Okay? If you are advancing the same cause as Epstein, a Zionist sex pest currently in court over distribution of revenge pornography, Neera Tanden, or numerous other people, as I've said time and time again, I would urge you to reconsider whether or not what you're doing is productive, or if you have been played a fool. That's it. Anyway, Trump blasts NATO allies and sets sights on Greenland again.
Less visiting
This time in
dignitary
Ankara.
attending a summit, more court of King Donald gracing a grateful alliance with his presence. Turkey put out the bling. President Trump showed his appreciation, announcing he would lift US sanctions on Turkey for buying Russian missiles and is open to selling them billions of dollars of fighter jets. For NATO, though, the near 8-decade-old alliance his nation is a cornerstone of, the tongue-lashing they feared.
We helped them, but I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. And Italy turned us down, and Germany turned us down, and France turned us down. And that's okay. But, you know, why are we spending hundreds of billions of dollars and they're not there for us? We've always been there for them.
His core message has never changed. The US is being taken advantage of. Europe needs to step up and defend itself. Last year, NATO allies, including the UK, agreed to raise their defence spending to 5% of GDP by 2035, 3.5% of which must be on core military spending. Last year, the UK spent 2.3%. Keir Starmer says his defence investment plan will boost that to 2.7% by 2029. But he hasn't explained how the government will get
That's
to
crazy.
3.5% in the next 9 years.
That's crazy. Adam Friedland and Clavicular made the New York Times most fashionable list, but you didn't. Did Clavicular actually make that? That's crazy. Modeling his talk show on Dick Cavett, Friedland pays homage to the semiotics of the forum, but one never forgets his intent to subvert those tropes down to wearing cowboy boots, which he pairs with his raffish suits. That's crazy. RFK Jr.? Okay. No, never mind. I'm good. I mean, that's crazy. They put Rama Dawaji right after RFK. That's messed up. Pregnant women in the Trump sphere. Okay, I feel like this is a bit of a diss because this is okay. Chase Infinity absolutely deserves this. Clavicular. Yeah, this is like a meme list. They put like serious people next to not so serious people, if that makes sense. That's come on. No. This list is ridiculous. Adam does deserve it, by the way, straight up. I will say that. All jokes aside, Adam is a valid pick. He is very stylish. I think he has he very clearly has a look. I hope he never hears me say this. Adam does deserve to be on a most stylish people list. Unlike some of the other people on this list. Oh, come on. John Travolta. Yeah, bro, clavicular. Have you ever put on a polo before? Yeah. This is the biggest journalistic malpractice I have ever seen. Straight up. It is unacceptable. All right, let's get back to Turkey being at the table, or rather being the table.
Greece. For European nations, it isn't just about spending more on defense, but shouting about it from the rooftops and making sure that message is heard on the other side of the Atlantic.
To meet the challenge, we need a transatlantic defense industrial revolution. The hum of machinery must become a roar. Now, that sounds dramatic, but it can be done.
This is a shorter summit. Leaders walking on eggshells, hoping for minimal opportunities for falling out with the US and maximum pledges of support for Ukraine. The most urgent priority? Air defense systems. 50 civilians killed in Kyiv in just the last week alone by Russian missiles.
While this war continues, please help us get more air defense missiles. This is our top priority right now. We are capable of doing everything else ourselves. But when it comes to air defense, we need our partners' determination.
This is a war on NATO's doorstep. The threat of Russian aggression is real, and for some, the US has merely focused attentions.
It is true, it was catalyzed by US, but it's each country's commitment and each country's progress.
And whatever the reason, are you happy to see that increase in commitment?
We're happy to see that increase in commitment because that enables us to have a better deterrence and defense.
Not so long ago, NATO said that all members of the alliance should be prepared for Russia to launch attacks against NATO members by 2030. Is that a fear you live in the shadow of?
It is quite clear, and I think it's a common understanding among us, that we need to accelerate those plans. In our case, there are more than 40 cases where we've seen drone incursions into our airspace as a spillover effect from the war at the border.
While some are clamoring for cash commitments and missiles, others are clawing for relevance. Leaders sitting down for dinner tonight just hope King Trump will deliver.
There's so much Mehmet shit. It's kind of crazy to see on the main stage. I just, you know.
His blessing.
Paul McNamara, well, as you heard there, NATO allies are under pressure from President Zelensky as well as President Trump. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Porrick O'Brien, joins us now from Kyiv. Porrick.
Krish, Trump meets Zelensky tomorrow, and Zelensky will have to walk a tightrope here. We all know that Donald Trump loves a winner, and Zelensky will be trying to impress upon him the fact that Ukraine have an upper hand in this war.
Yeah, the problem with that, is Zelensky's victories, and there are some you can point to for sure, like the peppering of like, the all bets are off drone warfare on oil and gas infrastructure and the ships is giving Zelensky some significant leverage, in my opinion. Okay? The problem is every moment of leverage that Zelensky has is actually hurting Trump's broader goals of normalizing the oil prices around the globe. So anytime Zelensky is actually getting leverage, which he certainly is a moment where is a moment where, you know, Donald Trump is probably getting pissed. As far as like allegiances that Russia had, you know, that's been a given, that this has been a lost cause. Meanwhile, while that is disrupting the oil prices in the global market, Donald Trump's actions against Iran now is also going to increase the volatility, especially as the oil reserves in the United States of America hit, and the rest of the world hit, critical levels. So supposedly oil tankers were hit by the coast of Oman, which is not an approved path that Iran agreed to, so they shot at 3 ships, and the U.S. struck Iran as a result. Yes.
They do, but Zelensky's also asking for stuff, and he has to do that in a way that doesn't make him and Ukraine look weak. What will he be asking for, as Paul alluded to in his report? He'll be asking for the missiles that Ukraine uses to take out those Russian ballistic missiles incoming to Ukraine, because he has run out of those interceptors, those missiles, those Patriot missile interceptors. How do we know that Ukraine has run out of them? Because of what happened here in Kyiv on Monday night, this huge barrage of missiles. Among that barrage of missiles, about 20 Russian ballistic missiles which got through. They weren't intercepted because Ukraine has run out of the interceptors. Tonight we wanted to bring you the story of one family, what that meant for one family in a neighborhood, Vishinev, in Kyiv, which we visited this afternoon. A Russian missile hit an arms dump in that area. It sparked a wave of secondary explosions that destroyed or damaged homes in a network of streets equivalent in size to about 20 football pitches. And in one of those homes, 91-year-old Valentina Pavlivna, she was not able to get to a shelter or down the stairs to the basement of her house where she lives alone. Her home was destroyed, and her son Alexander found her charred remains the following day. He spoke to us this afternoon. The leaders of NATO are meeting today. If you were sitting around that table, what would you say to them about the war in Ukraine? Now that, of course, just one of thousands of stories of civilians who've lost their lives since the full-scale invasion began, and you would hope that those sorts of stories in some way inform the conversation with the suits at the summit.
President Trump last night repeated his warnings that the rise of democratic socialists represents.
Oh my God. Ugh. Everything's fucked up. Once it hits 150 million barrels, the SPR might start to physically collapse, as in it will not function properly anymore. It looks to me like it will hit that before the midterms unless they pull back on the releases. They play your clip here.
A new communist threat to the United States. Some of those far-left candidates are using the term comrades now to describe their supporters.
Half of the people here are strangers to you all. Just months ago, you didn't know them. But now you have comrades.
You deserve to make sure that your international comrades are actually working with you and getting the benefits that you all deserve.
I gotta give shout out to my comrades. I mean, we are winning power. It's not just winning tweets or winning messaging. We're winning power.
Let's bring in Fox News contributor Richard Fowler. Richard, you're a solid Democrat. You got any comrades out there?
I don't have any comrades, I must say, John. Thanks for having me. Happy 4th to you.
Happy 4th. Yeah, what's going on? I mean,
dude, what the fuck are we doing? Like, how is this a news story? You ran out of shit? That's what it is? That there's nothing else going on today? Missouri Democrat congressional candidate Hartson Gray tells Hassan Piker he would force taxpayers to fund gender mutilations and abortions. Hassan, is that your childhood's bedroom? Get a real studio, meathead. I like my studio. There's no problem with the usage. By the way, this is a banger. Wide as hell, super tall, blonde. Let's be real. He would have been div. She'd have meant draft pick #1 in Renaissance era Macedonia. It's true. Na 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 na. Jedindadan Nesrin Bobon. Video from Shahid Haqqani Port. validated by network following U.S. airstrikes on the facility near Bandar Abbas in Iran. It's fucking nuts, dude. Yeah, CNN already reported that that these are strikes that are meant to be a punishment and will not be over for a while.
Is this a sort of a talking point among these so-called democratic socialists? Are they trying to get people comfortable with comrades in the vocabulary?
I don't know about that. I do think the word choice of the president last night actually does matter. I think there's a distinction between communism when you think of the Soviet Union or you think of the Cold War versus what you see many of these sort of modern day American politicians and what they're advocating for. What they're advocating for is the expansion of the social safety net. Many of the programs that the American people, you and I, think are very popular. My mom is on Social Security. I know folks who are on Medicare or Medicaid. There's some seniors who live in my neighborhood who are Meals on Wheels. These are all government programs that at the time of implementation, many folks called those programs socialist, and now they're some of the most popular programs amongst the American people. And I think when you talk to some of these candidates, what they're saying is, in a world in which we see high rent, in a world in which we see the high cost of health care, in a world in which we see child care, which for many families can average $13,000 a year for an infant, up to $20,000 in some states for just taking care of an infant baby so mom and or dad could go back to work. There's something uniquely wrong with that cost structure, and maybe, just maybe, there should be some more government-run programs that help alleviate that pain on working families so they can contribute to our economy.
I want to point out that on the other side of the aisle, Republicans are watching this rise of democratic socialism in the Democrat Party and making some observations about why it seems to be gaining steam. Here's Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House.
I think quietly, the Democrat establishment on Capitol Hill understands that, but they feel powerless to stop it, because if they stand up and say this is wrong, the problem they have is the energy.
Why would they do that? Here's the thing. They do feel it, but there's a significant problem here. Okay? The problem is Democrats run as comrades when there's an actual election, or at least close to it. When you look at like Democrats broadly, they are very open about how they want everyone to have health care. It's just like the truth gets lost in the minutia. Okay? That's the problem. So they can't actually turn around and be like, no, we never wanted fucking Medicare for all. Shut the fuck up. We never wanted to hold Israel accountable for its genocide. Shut the fuck up. They can't say that, because if they were to say that, they would give the game away. And then no one would ever trust an establishment Democrat ever again. As a matter of fact, many people have actually arrived at that conclusion that they cannot trust establishment Democrats regardless.
Damn, this guy's good.